Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Surprise Jab Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Ruger, surprising you with new topics every single week and jabbing you with your daily dose of UFC. And UFC has officially come to an end in 2024. That's right, we have no new events to round out the month of December. The next new event that we will be having, I believe, takes place, I want to say January 11th? I want to say January 11th. Is when the next UFC event is. I believe it's Mackenzie Dern versus Amanda Hebus, which is a pretty lackluster event. But UFC 311 going down in Los Angeles, that's going to be a banger event. But on today's episode, we'll be looking at the entire year of 2024 in review. This is not any rankings. This is not my award show. This is just a complete review of everything in the UFC that happened. Fighters who left, fighters who joined, a whole assortment of stuff, fighters who got suspended, all the title fights, lots of fun stuff. Also on today's episode, we'll be dropping our NFL Week 16 quick predictions. We only have 3 more weeks of the regular season for the 2024 NFL season. Also, new UFC fights, the final rankings update for the year, and I will be reviewing the hit movie, one of the greatest movies of all time, Gladiator. I finally got around to watch it. I mean, Russell Crowe, are you kidding me? What a performance. We're finally back home for winter break, so we'll see how easy it is, or how hard it is, per se, to upload these episodes as I get terrible Wi-Fi at my parents' house. So we'll have to power through that. But let's kick things off with, of course, some new UFC news. There haven't really been too many new fights being announced. There hasn't been necessarily a lot of updates, but we have had 3 new fights announced. The first one going on at UFC Vegas 102 at the Apex February 15th. Jared Flash Gordon in the lightweight division, the lightweight division, takes on Cal Fernandez. Jared 8-6 in the UFC, 20-7 professionally. Biggest win of his career, probably over Mark Madsen, who he knocked out in round 1. He takes on Cal Fernandez, who is 9-2, hailing from Brazil. Holds a win over Muhammad Yaha in the UFC. Don't know too much about either of these guys. They seem pretty mediocre. If it was up to me, I'd probably ride with Jared Gordon. Jared Gordon, I think on the scorecards, beat Paddy Pimblett. I think that's what should be the biggest win of his career, but other than that, pretty solid fighter. He is getting up there in age. I believe he turns 37 next year, so we'll see how that impacts him as he continues to move along. Another fight for you, this one, UFC 312 in Sydney, Australia, February 8th. Jack Jenkins back in action, one of the favorite featherweights that is not ranked currently. He takes on Gabriel Santos, I believe, actually. Gabriel 1-2 in the UFC. He actually holds a win over Elvis Brenner, funny enough. Dude's a dog. I remember his fights with Leron Murphy and with what's his name? David Onama. This guy's an absolute dog. And as for Jack Jenkins, I mean, this guy has some killer leg kicks. His only losses in the UFC are due to a doctor stoppage. Okay, that is the only reason. This guy is an absolute savage, and I'm excited to see him fight on home soil in Australia. Definitely riding with Jack Jenkins in that one. Final new UFC fight announced. This one, UFC Vegas 104, going down March 15th at the Apex. Heavyweight action as Waldo Cortez Acosta takes on Ryan Spann. That's right, Ryan Spann leaving the light heavyweight division, moving up to heavyweight, trying to get a change of pace. It won't be easy, though. Waldo Salsa Boy Cortez Acosta, what a nickname that is. 5-1 in the UFC, currently ranked number 13th. Most recently beat Robelis Despanje. Also has a win over former champion Andre Arlovsky. As for Ryan Spann, I mean, biggest win of his career, probably over Dominic Reyes back in 2022. Other than that, he's had some lackluster losses to Anthony Smith. He's also lost to Nikita Krylov. He hasn't really done much, so we'll see if he can change his fate at heavyweight. I mean, I wish there was other stuff I could share, but really there hasn't been too much new news. There are some rumors that Conor McGregor might be fighting Logan Paul February 1st in Saudi Arabia. I don't think that's true because it was just announced that Logan Paul is joining WWE Raw on Netflix, and that starts January 6th, and I doubt that he's going to be joining and then be actually allowed to compete in a boxing match on a Saturday, so I think we can kind of X that out. I'm really hoping that Conor McGregor just returns to the UFC and fights people normally, but I'm going to be honest, I just don't see it. I just don't, but yeah, interesting stuff, cool stuff there. But yes, that's all the new UFC fights that should be on your radar. I'll tell you what else should be on your radar, and that is the hit movie Gladiator. Gladiator, starring Russell Crowe, also has Joaquin Phoenix in it. This movie, so fantastic. I started with Lexi last night, and we got about halfway through, and we had to go make some dinner, and then she didn't want to watch it again, so we ended up watching The Santa Claus, starring Tim Allen. But I got back home from her house, and I managed to finish it. And let me just tell you guys, this is such a great film. Such a great film. Over 20 years old, I think it is, at this point. Starring Russell Crowe, it basically tells the story of a Roman general during the height of Rome. And Caesar dies. Marcus Aurelius is the Caesar at the time, and he names Maximus. Maximus is Russell Crowe's character's name, the Roman general. He names him the new leader of Rome, but his son, who he knows is not fit to rule, Joaquin Phoenix, learns about this, or can just tell. I think it is not as much learns, but can tell, and he kills his father, and he becomes the new leader, the emperor, if you will, the Caesar, as they call it, of Rome, and basically tries to kill Russell Crowe. All right, he fails. Obviously, Russell Crowe's able to kill everyone that comes after him, and we kick things off, and they kill his wife and his son in just crazy fashion. They hang them, burn them alive, abuse them. It's ridiculous. And, Russell Crowe, he's at his house, he passes out, and he's picked up by these, I don't even know who they are, but basically slave traders, and they take him to these pits somewhere, and he basically becomes the gladiator. He's fighting every day in these pits to survive, forms a friendship with two of the guys in there. Very cool stuff. And eventually, he makes it back to Rome, fighting at the Colosseum, and is there that Joaquin Phoenix, who I believe is called Commodus in the film, learns that he is still alive. And amazing film, amazing work. Ridley Scott does a fantastic job. The score, the cinematography. There's some moments in the film that you can tell this was shot in the late 90s, early 2000s. But I would not say that hinders the movie's ability at all. It really just should have great combat scenes, a good enough gore for the time that the film was taking place. If you're filmed, I should better say. It was fantastic. Truly, this is a 10 out of 10 film on the Surprise Jam podcast scale, if you will. And, it's unfortunate how it ends, but it really comes full circle where Maximus is able to be reunited with his family in the afterlife. But it is gruesome. It is gruesome. And, a lot of the characters that you meet throughout the film, they do die, which is unfortunate. But it does end with a hope for a better Rome. Great film. I would rewatch it many times over. Just the entire story of revenge, of fulfilling a promise you made, and of just grit and determination to stay alive to complete a task is really something to be shared. And this perfectly sets up Gladiator 2, which is currently in the theaters. I am hoping to see, because I am looking to do my top 10 new movies I saw in 2024, in the theater, of course, that came out in 2024, or on Netflix. So I'm hoping that I can see Gladiator 2 to add that to the list, because I've heard this is one of the best movies of the year. It'll be tough to pass Dune Part 2. I still remember how amazing that movie is. Same with Deadpool and Wolverine. That was a fantastic theater experience. But Gladiator never gets old, is super amazing. I'm glad I finally came around to it. I've been pushing it off. It's 2.5 hours. Takes a while to watch, but it is so worth the watch. Let me tell you, and it sort of ignites this spirit in you that you wish you were in that times. You wish you were a Roman general. You wish you were trying to get revenge on everyone who had wronged you in your past. And it certainly has some deeper themes that I really appreciate. So Gladiator, check it out, and hopefully we'll be checking out Gladiator 2 sooner rather than later. But in terms of other stuff going on in the pop culture world, you already know discussing film has got us. Number one, Dune Prophecy has been renewed for season 2 at HBO. Dune Prophecy kind of tells the story of the Jezeberet or whatever, kind of like who, whatever Paul Atreides' mother belongs to, like whatever she is. I hate to say witches. They aren't witches, but there's some type of mystic, they possess powers, if you will. I personally had no interest in it. I'm more interested in Dune Messiah whenever that comes out, which I'm hoping, fingers crossed, Denis Villeneuve can get that filmed next year. That can come out mid-2026. We'll have to see, but Dune Prophecy is still remaining on HBO. Gladiator 2 has passed 400 million worldwide. I believe their budget was 200 million, so it's already made double what it cost to make the film. Just speaks to how fantastic this film is and why I have to see it. Number 3, the first trailer is now out for James Gunn's Superman film, releasing July 11th, 2025. I was able to catch it. I was able to watch this trailer to an extent. It doesn't really tell much, and I was going to the comments afterwards because it kind of looks like it was shot through a CW type of style, which, it's hard going from watching the Zack Snyder Superman movies to watching Matt Reeves' Batman, and to kind of see this film, which kind of gives CW vibes at a higher level, higher budget. Superman has his dog, what's it called, Crypto, I think it is. There was numerous amount of villains. We saw Lex Luthor in there, who's portrayed by an actor who I legit see in so many films and don't know his name, which I'm sorry about that. He was in The Menu. He was in Jack the Giant Slayer. Oh gosh, I can't remember his name, but he's a pretty good actor. Numbers amount of villains. You see Lois Lane in it, and I'll probably give it a shot, but I don't know if I'm going to go to the theater to see it. Superman isn't really my cup of tea for some reason. Number 4, the 28 Years Later sequel will release on January 11th, 2026 in theaters, less than a year after the first film's release. The title is 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. So how about that? So 28 Years Later, which is the sequel to 28 Days Later, will be coming out next year. And the sequel to that film will be coming out January 16th, and it's called The Bone Temple. Very interesting enough. They're already turning that into a little trilogy. Haven't seen 28 Days Later. I would very much like to see that first before I see 28 Years Later. But let me tell you, 28 Years Later looks absolutely terrifying. Gosh, I would be a little scared to see that, if I'm being honest. Number 5, The Housemaid, starring Sydney Sweeney and Amanda Seyfried, will release on December 25th, 2025, so Christmas next year. The film follows a young woman who becomes a housemaid for a couple, but soon learns that the family's secrets are far more dangerous than her own. Ooh, Sydney Sweeney continues to take over Hollywood, continues to get cast in just about every single movie coming out. You know what? Good for her. She has managed to use her looks and her skills, if you want to call it, her acting abilities, to get high up in the world. But I think we all know why everyone is attracted to Sydney Sweeney. Just listen to Ken Carson's song SS. Number 7, Squid Game creator Hyung Dong-hyuk says, "I'm so exhausted, I'm so tired, I'm so sick of Squid Game." He said, "I'm so sick of my life making something, promoting something, so I'm not thinking about my next project right now. I'm just thinking about going to some remote island," which is pretty ironic since the entire film is about elites going to islands and doing these things. The second season of Squid Games, and what I could presume is the final due to his kind of damper mood of Squid Games, comes out post-Christmas. I am definitely getting Netflix. Definitely got to watch this. We got the final season of You coming out. We'll see if they mention that on Discussing Film as I go through this. They also have, I believe, the final season of Stranger Things. They have the final season of Cobra Kai. Raw on Netflix. They got WWE Raw on there now, and the pay-per-views, I think. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on Netflix. I gotta get on that train. Number 8, House of the Dragon Season 3 will begin filming in Q1 of 2025. I'm going to be honest, I don't know why, but Season 2 did not hit for me. And I do think it is that I'm still left so unsatisfied after the end of Game of Thrones that nothing can really live up to me. The first season of House of the Dragon, it was something fresh. I hadn't had any Game of Thrones for like 3 years since then, probably like 4. And, Season 2, it just felt like, Season 1 felt like build-up, but you didn't really realize that till the end. And then Season 2, you realize was just even more build-up. And it's like I already know what happens because I've read the books, so I don't really know how to feel about it, but maybe I'll check it out. Number 9, just as I mentioned, the first poster for the final season of You releases in 2025 on Netflix. It shows a picture of Joe Goldberg with half of his face covered, just one eye showing, and it's a picture of all the missing people that he has killed. A Killer Goodbye, a Netflix series, You, only on Netflix 2025, it reads. Very excited for this, and, it kind of reminds me of Dexter. We're rooting for a killer, we're rooting for the antagonist, if you will, of the show, and there's just some kind of fun about the fact that he always gets away and he's becoming more more psychotic, and now he has all this power, and I'm definitely going to go through and re-binge the entire series so that I'll be prepared for the final season of You, which I believe is either season 5. I think it's season 5 is the final season, if I can think correctly. I think season 5 is the final season. And number 10, actually we got 2 for you. A new look at Cillian Murphy and Barry Keoghan in the Peaky Blinders film releasing next year on Netflix. Yet another show I gotta freaking watch is Peaky Blinders. I've heard so many great things about it. Oh, with the Peaky Blinders. And they got Barry Keoghan in it. How about that? A little Irishman action going on. And the bonus other one, the Clayface movie is being described as DC's version of The Fly, releasing in theaters 9/11/2026. I don't know what's going on with that, but Clayface sounds kind of freaky, sounds kind of gross, if I'm being honest. I don't really have any interest in that, but I mean, hey, it could be good. Could be good. It's just movies like that just don't really entice me as much, and I don't really know necessarily what type of movies entice me, but there's always a certain type that really draws me in. But that's all we got for new pop culture, new movie news, new TV series news. A lot of TV series news. Let me tell you, they got a lot of TV series wrapping up, coming up in the following year. But I'll tell you what's also wrapping up. That is the NFL season, and we are in the home run stretch. We're rounding third, heading home, and we are now going into week 16, and there's a lot of playoff implications going on, including tonight. When this podcast is being recorded is before Thursday Night Football. I think when it releases, unfortunately, it will be after that has come out due to my terrible Wi-Fi that is. So if the Broncos win tonight on Thursday Night Football, I do believe they clinch a playoff spot, which would be very massive for the Denver Broncos franchise, as they have not been to the playoffs since 2015. Or maybe it's they haven't clinched since 2016. It's one of the two. I don't know, but let's get right on into it. We got a numerous amount of games, 16 to be exact, and we're going to drop our predictions for every single one. Kicking us off, Broncos taking on the Chargers. And let me tell you, in fantasy football, I've been relying on this Chargers defense way too much, and they've been letting me down over and over and over again. I cannot get over it. Truly, I just cannot get over it. They have just been going negative. I know this was the number 4 defense at one point, and it's like, oh, I'm finally going to start them, and they keep going negative. And actually, speaking of fantasy football, I know I'm in the losers bracket for one of my leagues. I'm going to go for my family league. I set up the playoffs wrong. So I actually, if I had been in the playoffs, I would be killing myself, but I only put 6 instead of all 8 of us, which is unfortunate. I'm looking to make the championship in my 16-man and in my 10-man friends league. So we have big games going on there. As for the sleeper league, I believe I'm in the 3rd place game with my buddy Garrett, so I could really care less if I take 3rd or 4th. It doesn't really matter to me. But in terms of this game, Broncos and Chargers, I might have Bo Nix in the league. That's all I got. Broncos currently 9-5 are on a 4-game win streak. They are 4-3 on the road, taking on fellow divisional rival in 3rd in the AFC West, the Chargers, who are 8-6 on a 2-game losing streak. They are 4-3 at home. It's tough to tell what will happen here. Chargers are closing as the favorites at -145. The +125 underdog is the Broncos, but I really don't see the Broncos slowing down. If I'm being honest, they're 9-5. They've been playing good ball. Their game with the Colts was close last week, and they were able to pull away. They've also been in barn burners with the Broncos. They managed to withstand the Raiders' efforts, and they blew out the Falcons 38-6. Their last 2 losses, I just want to throw this out there, the last 2 losses, a 2-point loss to the Chiefs and a blowout loss to the Ravens. So this team is very durable, very good, and I'm going to ride with the Broncos here. I'm going to say the Broncos get past the Chargers, and I always love to pick teams splitting when it comes to season series, but oddly enough, the last time these two teams played, Chargers won 23-16. That was October 13th, so 2 months later, they rebattle, and I honestly think the Broncos are going to get the upper hand on this team. After that, we actually have a little Saturday football as the Texans will be taking on the Chiefs. And, I would love to upset pick the Chiefs, but this is not the week I'm picking the Chiefs. Chiefs are perfectly well rested. This team boasts a +70 point differential, 4-game win streak. They're also 7-0 at home. They play their best ball when they're at home. Now, I can't lie, it is getting to a ridiculous point where they have close games, but we finally reached a week last week where they managed to beat the Browns 21-7 and never really faltered. honestly looked good the entire way, played good ball. They're minus 190 favorites coming into this, and I just don't think this is the week that the Chiefs lose their second game of the year. Now, for the Texans, they've made the playoffs. They've won the AFC South. They're 9-5, 2-game win streak. Colts, Jaguars, Titans, they all suck so much. Okay, so Texans are in the playoffs. I just don't think this team has what it takes to make a run. Okay, I think that out of their final 3 weeks, out of their final 3 games, I think they can at least get to double digits. They should be able to win 1 game. But when it comes to the playoffs, I don't see them going far. Maybe a wild card or maybe a wild card win. They're not going to make the divisional round. If I'm being honest, that's probably going to be the Bills or the Steelers, obviously with the Chiefs in this case. But, with the loss of Stephon Diggs, Joe Mixon hasn't really been able to regain that magic he had. The bye weeks and an injury kind of hindered his abilities. So we're going to go with the Chiefs here. Kind of an easy pick. Statistically, it is better to pick teams like the Chiefs than it is to pick upsets like the Texans. Final game on Saturday, we get the Steelers and the Ravens. This one has some massive implications as I do have the Ravens defense and Zay Flowers. So I will be rooting very heavily for the Ravens to win this one. Ravens are currently 9-5, second in the AFC North. Steelers 10-4. They've already clinched a playoff spot. And Ravens coming off a win last week. Steelers coming off a loss. Points-wise, the Steelers boast almost a plus 100 point differential. Same for the Ravens. Ravens have 418 points. Okay, their offense is outstanding. And especially last week when Derrick Henry decided to just take an off week, only had 6 fantasy points, and Lamar went off for 36. So Lamar Jackson was showing his abilities to just lead this team, put this team on his back. And mind you, when the Steelers and Ravens played each other November 17th, that wasn't but a month ago, Steelers only won by 2 points. That was in Pittsburgh. So now we're in Baltimore. I think that this is going to be where the Ravens shine best, and the Steelers actually have a better record at home than they do on the road. They lost more games on the road, so we're going to be riding with the Ravens in this one, getting a little revenge. Heading into Sunday, kicking things off, Browns and Bengals. Bengals minus 450, Browns are plus 340. This Bengals offense and this Browns offense, they are both some outstanding offenses, but the Browns defense sucks. And the Browns offense is obviously kind of hindered by turnovers here and there. So this is an easy pick for the Bengals here. Jamar Chase, Chase Brown, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. The entire gang of the Bengals offense. They are outstanding. 399 points for. They are looking to only get their second home win of the year. They're 1-5 at home. They are finally on a 2-game win streak, though. As for their divisional rival, the Browns, 3-game losing streak. They have a minus 120 point differential. It has just been a rough year. Rough year for the Browns, and it's not looking better. Not looking better in the slightest. These teams played October 20th. It was a 21-14 win for the Bengals, and I think this is where the Bengals get a big win and maybe make the playoffs. Playoffs are not completely off the table, but it is games like these you have to win if you're a Bengals. So good luck to the Bengals. I do think they blow out the Browns in this one. Following that, Giants visit the Falcons. Now, this one's very, very interesting. So if no one's heard about the Falcons situation, they, of course, did win last week against the Raiders. They are 7-7. They are no longer in the lead of the NFC South, and they most recently benched Kirk Cousins for their number 9, or might have been 8, I think it's 9 draft pick, Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington. That is right. Michael Penix Jr. will be leading the helm. They've had enough of Kirk Cousins. Okay, I think it's in the last 4 to 5 weeks, Kirk Cousins has 1 touchdown, and I want to say like 10 picks or something. It is utterly insane. Falcons are closing as minus 450 favorites. This is, mind you, actually like 4 days out, but Giants at plus 340, 2-12. They're awful. Okay, this Giants team is really, really bad. 2-12, 9-game losing streak. But out of both of those wins, they've came on the road. And the Falcons at 3-4 haven't necessarily been the best at home. So if you're going to see an upset here, you have a team that plays better on the road, you have a team that plays worse at home, and you have a rookie quarterback starting. Now, the one reason that I am going to give this to the Falcons here is that when I look at all the Falcons' past performances, they just don't match up to how bad that the Giants have been. And the Giants, as much as Michael Penix Jr. will be making his first actual, I'd say being a starter for first example, but making his NFL debut in a sense for playtime, he is far more better on my to me, he is far more better to me than Tommy DeVito, Tim Boyle. I don't even know what else the fucking Giants got. Sorry for cursing, but we're going Falcons all day. I think Bijan, Drake London going to eat this defense for breakfast. And the Giants defense, for how good they are, they're on the field way too much. This is the worst offense in the league. Giants have only put up 208 points the entire year. Yeah, they're rough. Excellent game coming at you, 2 at noon. Lions visit the Bears. And if this is going to be a week that the Bears win, it could be this week, but I'm just not going to say so. I'm obviously picking the Lions to win this one. I'm done. I'm so done picking the Bears at all. 4-10. They're on an 8-game win streak. There's at one point they were 4-2. We were the best conference in the league, and now it's just 3 teams in our conference are the best. Bears, they are just atrocious. Utterly atrocious. It's so bad. A minus 44-point differential. They're 0-7 on the road. Okay, so 4-3 at home. All of their wins have came at home, but they haven't won since I think I want to say 5. I want to say 7. They haven't won since week 7. Yeah, if they were 4-2. So it's been a while for the Bears. 8-game losing streak. As for the Lions, they lost a barn burner to the Bills, which was 48-42. They looked good as ever in a loss. They're 12-2. 459 points for. This is the highest scoring offense in the league. They're going to eat this team for breakfast. We are going with the Lions all day. After that, another divisional game as the Titans visit the Colts in the AFC. This is a little tricky one for me. This one's actually pretty tricky. Titans are minus 160. Colts at plus 1. Titans are plus 160. Yeah, Colts are minus 190. Colts 6-8 are second in the AFC South. For the Titans, 3-game losing streak, 3-11 bottom of the AFC South. Colts have gone 3-3 at home. Titans have gone 2-5 on the road. This is the games where I feel like the Titans can win, just shock everyone, and I kind of go, you got to be kidding me. I can't believe I didn't predict them. But it's impossible for me to pick this Titans team. Their quarterback situation is atrocious with Will Levis and Mason Rudolph. I legit feel that they are the worst quarterback room maybe in the NFL. And for the Colts, they have a lot more weapons than the Titans. Titans don't necessarily have any standout stars. You could maybe say Tony Pollard, but I wouldn't even go with that. But Anthony Richardson, Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor. I'm very confident that this Colts team can string together a win and maybe keep their playoff hopes alive, because there is still a miraculous way that they could somehow make the wild card game. Sneak in as the 7 seed. We'll have to see. Cross-conference battle here as the Rams visit the Jets. Jets at plus 140 are the underdogs. Rams minus 165. Jets at 4-10 did pick up a win last week. Mind you, it was over the Jaguars, but nonetheless, a win's a win. Jets 4-10. They've gone 2-4 at home. Yeah, they are not that good. And their defense is so talented, yet they're out there so much. They just give up so many points. For the Rams, 8-6, top team in the NFC West, 3-game win streak, momentum galore. They still boast a minus 28-point differential, Shockingly, I can't believe they have a minus point differential. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Kyron Williams, Matt Stafford. I mean, this offense is loaded. Defense isn't too shabby themselves. The Jets have fallen into Bears territory where I'm not picking them the rest of the way through the season. Let's go Rams over Jets. I think a road win for the Rams is in the cards. Keeping the noon games rolling. Eagles visit the Commanders, and this is going to be a great game. Trust me, this is going to be a talented affair. Eagles and Commanders played, I don't know what week it was, but November 14th, Eagles came out 26-18 in that one. They're on a 10-game win streak. They have a plus 122-point differential. They are 6-1 on the road. This Eagles team is outstanding. Commanders, 2-game win streak. They're 5-2 at home. They have a plus 81-point differential. This team is also talented, but I am an Eagles fan. Rest of the way, I'm not a Commanders fan. I don't have Terry McLaurin. I don't have Brian Robinson Jr. I don't have Jay McDaniels. You know what? Who I do have? I got Devontae Smith in the league. I got Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley in my main 16-man league. We are an Eagles fan the rest of the way. They're minus 190 favorites. And after how good they played last week, I just do not see this Eagles team collapsing anytime soon. They look better than they did last year, that's for certain. Give me the Eagles over the Commanders. Final noon game as the Cardinals will be visiting the Carolina Panthers. Panthers looking to do anything. Honestly, 4-game losing streak, 3-11. They've given up 418 points. If you were to ask me how many other teams in the NFC have given up 400 points, I would tell you 0 teams. If you were to ask me how many teams in the entire NFL have given up 400 points, I would say 1, and that is the Panthers. Panthers, worst offense in the league, and they're taking on a Cardinals team who is 7-7. Pretty mediocre the whole way. They just ran into a bit of a skid. And, they have been worse on the road at 2-4 compared to their 5-3 home record. But this is a very winnable game for the Cardinals. And Bryce Young, as much as I think he can win games, it's really just hasn't looked too good. And after the loss to the Cowboys last week, I don't think this Panthers team is really all well put together. Give me the Cardinals. They are minus 215 favorites, by the way. I should add that. 3 o'clock games get kicked off as my Minnesota Vikings visit the Seahawks. Minnesota minus 155 favorites, the plus 135 underdog Seahawks. Now, this one's very conflicting for me as I do have Jackson Smith and Jigba, and I really hope he goes off on an exponential degree. But I am a diehard Vikings fan. This is my team. We're 12-2, 7-game win streak. We've been 5-1 on the road. We've been doing outstanding. We also have a plus 127 point differential. That is just not something a Minnesota Viking does. That's just not something Minnesota does. We don't have an exemplary record and a great point differential. But here we are, looking good. We've put up 369 points on the year. If we drop 31, we'll be at 400. How about that? So easily I'm picking the Vikings, but as weird as this is, I do kind of hope Jackson Smith and Jigba cooks our backfield, gets 4 touchdowns, and goes absolutely ballistic. But obviously rooting for the Vikings. Love you, Jordan Addison, but take the game off. Take the game off, Jordan Addison. We don't need you this week. Just relax. Patriots visit the Bills. Bills are minus 1,000 favorites. Patriots at plus 600. I thought it was 1,600. Only plus 600. Patriots 3-11, 4-game losing streak. They've gone 2-6 on the road, so better than their 1-5 home record, but not a good team. Not a good team. Minus 99 point differential. Bills, on the other hand, 445 points put up. They're 6-0 at home. This team is so talented. Give me the Bills all day. Josh Allen also needs to guide me to a fantasy football championship performance against either my buddy Ryan or my buddy Josh. So come on, Josh. Come on, Josh Allen. Not Josh Lichting, my good friend. No, Josh Allen. We need him to drop another 40, 50-point bomb. He's put up over 90 fantasy points the last 2 weeks. I hope that continues. How about a loser bowl matchup here as the Jaguars visit the Raiders? I honestly couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. Jaguars are plus 100, Raiders minus 120. That's going to flip-flop. I mean, Raiders 2-12, 10-game losing streak. They've just been awful. The only good part of this team is Brock Bowers, and they don't even pass to him enough, okay? They've been lackluster on him because he doesn't have a damn quarterback. For the Jaguars, 3-11, Brian Thomas Jr. has been the only bright spot, and mind you, I have Brock and Brian Thomas Jr. on my fantasy teams. Etienne and Tank Bigsby have just been so mediocre this year. I feel like they don't even know how to use those two, and that's a great running back room right there. Jaguars, we can only really look at their records. Jaguars are 1-6 on the road. Raiders are 1-5 at home, so it's a toss-up. Jaguars are only coming off a loss, so they did pick up a win much more recently than the 10-game losing streak Raiders, worst losing streak in the league. But I think we're going to go with the Jaguars here. Mac Jones has proven there's a way to win. For the Raiders, I am yet to see a winnable way. Truly, I'm yet to see them have any success. At home against the Falcons, it was 15-9 loss. Brutal game. Absolutely brutal game. At home against the Broncos, loses by 10. At home against the Chiefs, only lost by 7, but there was a little bit of scandal there. Against the Steelers, blown out by 19. At home against the Browns, September 29th, their last win, where they won. So we'll see if they can regain any momentum, but we will ride with the Jaguars in this one. Final 325 game for you. 49ers visit the Dolphins. This was a split game for me. This is a split game. Talking about two evenly teams that a lot was expected of them this year, and they have not lived up to any expectations. Dolphins 6-8, 4-3 at home have been pretty decent. Jonnu Smith tossing it up. I'm playing him in my 16-man league. Can we chill, Jonnu, please? Same for Tyreek. I play him as well. He's been doing pretty mediocre compared to the last few seasons. Devin Achane can only do as much as he's allowed to work with, and their defense, they've given up 312 points. Not the worst I've seen in the league. For the 49ers, definitely the most disappointing team of the entire year. A 6-8 team who was expected to go back to the Super Bowl. okay? But they have so many tools. This team, they have so many tools. Like, you list off all their heavy hitters they got on their team, there's so many. And last week, 12-6 loss to the Rams. I just think that was a close divisional game. It came down to a battle of the field goals, and they lost. And when I look at their last few losses, Rams team, look how good that offense is. Bills team, they got blown out. That was a snow game, and we know how dang good that Bills offense is. Packers blew them out. I mean, this Packers team is very talented. I'll give them credit. 20-17 loss to the Seahawks. That's a close divisional game. That is a divisional opponent you split with every year. Last excusable loss, I'll give it to the Chiefs. I mean, other than that, another divisional loss, and pretty much the whole way, it's been divisional losses or better teams. It's been very close. Been very close, and I do think the 49ers get back on track here. I am not a fan this week of the Dolphins. We need Tyreek Hill and Jonnu Smith locked down. I'm looking for this 49ers defense to get big and end Tua's reign. So, 49ers all day. Gotta do what you gotta do. Sunday Night Football gets us going with the Buccaneers visiting the Cowboys. And if this Buccaneers team continues playing how they're playing, this is going to be a blowout. 403 points put up this season. Buccaneers have been rolling 4-game win streak. They lead the NFC South. Okay, but mind you, the NFC South is a battle between the Buccaneers and Falcons. Technically, the Falcons aren't completely out. I mean, the Saints, I should say, aren't completely out. But, it's looking like it's more between the Buccaneers and Falcons. For the Cowboys, mediocre year. You're going to miss the playoffs. You're 6-8. You have a -80, -70 point differential. It's awful. They're also 1-6 at home, which is not good at all. As for the Bucs, they've gone 5-2 on the road. Give me the Buccaneers all day. I don't really have much riding on this game. I really just hope Rico Dowdle and Bucky Irving have some pretty good games. After that, we head to Monday Night Football, where the Saints visit the Packers, and the Packers are at -1,200 odds. Holy cow, Saints are +700. You can pay me to pick a +700 underdog. I mean, this Saints team is just rough. Just rough, Last time out, lost by 1 to the Commanders, but that was they got garbage time points to make that game close. Giants game, they almost gave up a lead to the Giants, lost by 7 to the Rams, blew out the Browns, beat the Falcons, lost to the Panthers, got blown out by the Chargers, got blown out by the Broncos, got blown out by the Buccaneers, lost by 2 score to the Chiefs. It's been a rough season for the Saints. And when I look at this Packers team, 10-4, coming off a win, have almost a +100 point differential, 5-2 at home and on the road. This is a steady team. They're very proven, if you will, and the running back room is going to be what really strives here. And people have been telling me to start Romeo Doubs, all the experts on ESPN Fantasy, but I can't start Doubs when I have Zay Flowers, Brock Bowers, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Brian Thomas Jr. Okay, that's the 6, 7, 15 wide receivers and the number 1 tight end. And I can't start it from Romeo Doubs, who, despite getting 2 touchdowns last week, there's just, you got Dontavian Wicks out there. You got Bo Melton. You got Jaden Reed. You got Christian Watson. There's too many options. Tucker Kraft even. It's almost impossible to tell which Packers player will go off for each game. But we're going with the Packers. We'll say, what should we say here? I'm going to say it's a barn burner. I'm going 45 to, we'll say 48-42. Why not? 48-42, another barn burner. That's what we'll ride with there. But NFL Week 16 should be exciting. And mind you, we're going to have a little turnaround on Christmas Day for some more games. But that's all we got for NFL. We are now on to the UFC 2024 year in review. We go to the UFC page on Wikipedia and we go through the entire year of UFC. It's the easiest way for me to do this instead of taking a bunch of notes. It's easier for me to just go through all this. They have all the data compiled for me. We look through all the events, talk about everything that happened. It's a fun time. Let's get right on into it. Kicking things off, how about we take a quick look at the final updated UFC rankings for the year, of course, post-UFC Tampa. These are the current standings ahead of the new year. So, changes that took place. We head to the men's flyweight division. Minoke, following his dominant round 3 TKO of Bruno Silva, moves up 3 spots from 9 to 6. Minoke will be poised at number 6 and is looking to get a fight with either Brandon Moreno, maybe Amir Albazi, maybe even just straight up Alexander Pantoja. He has got a lot of options heading into 2025. Alex Perez down to 7, Asu Almabayev down to 8, Steve Erceg down to 9, any of those guys can really be matched up with anyone. Following Bruno Silva's loss, Charles Johnson passes him. Stay tuned in for Charles Johnson. He may be my comeback fighter of the year. We'll have to see. I'm really debating choosing him as the comeback fighter of the year. Bruno, I sense him taking on someone like Joshua Van coming up next. No changes in the men's pound for pound. Islam Makhachev remains number 1. Bantamweight division, no new changes there. I'd say when we're going to look on some upcoming episodes at the biggest jumps, but as of right now, Devson Figueiredo being ranked number 5 is really impressive. Mario Batista at 10. How about that? And Umar Nurmagomedov at number 2. It's not that weird to look at it now, but you have to think at the start of the year, he was in the bottom of the pack, and now he's ending the year as the number 2 guy. At featherweight, no new changes. Biggest jump, Diego Lopez up to 3. Mosfarov up to 4 as expected. Other than that, nothing too much. Expected Brian Ortega, I think, to have the biggest drop-off. We'll be looking back at that, but he's only down to 6. But Diego Lopez finishing at 3, probably the biggest change. At lightweight, Joel Alvarez, following his finish of Drakkar Klose, moves into the number 15 spot, replacing Grant Dawson. Joel, 22 career victories, 22 career finishes. And, he matches up perfectly with a lot of guys. Number 14th ranked Jalen Turner, I think, is a perfect fight. All right, number 12 ranked Benoit Saint-Denis, another perfect fight. The highest I would put him probably up to Rafael Fiziev at 11, or the loser of Beneil Dariush and Haru Moicano, who'll be ranked number 10. As for changes at men's lightweight, Arman Tsarukyan ending as the number 1 contender, probably that. But I'd say probably the biggest thing to say is Dan Hooker back at number 6. That's what I would say is the biggest change. At welterweight, Joaquin Buckley moves up to 6, and Colby Covington moves down to 9. They swap places. Colby, they're either going to give him a charity matchup and have him take on Gilbert Burns or, dare I say, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Other than that, who else is Colby going to face? Number 13th ranked Carlos Prates. Number 12 ranked Michael Morales. Maybe even 14th ranked Vicente Luque. That would be a fun fight. In terms of biggest climbers, Joaquin Buckley might be at number 6. He went 4-0 on the year. Sean Brady at 5, also a big shocker. Jack Del Malane at 4. Shavkat at 2. You have seen a lot of guys make the jump to get into the UFC rankings, especially into the top 5. Middleweight, no changes there. Sean Magomedov in the rankings at 14. Didn't expect that at the start of the year. You also had Nasruddin Imavov at 5, Hamzat at 3, Cabral at 6. So I guess a good amount of shockers there. I thought Robert Whittaker would take kind of a dive this year, but as always, the Reaper remains on cooking. At light heavyweight, no real shockers. I'm going to be honest. No real shockers. Alex Pereira still your champion. Carlos Ulberg at 6, maybe, but I really expected that. Honestly, nothing too shocking at light heavyweight. At heavyweight, we've mentioned this for the last 4 years, I think, since I've been talking about UFC, I guess on the podcast since ever, but the difference between the top 6 at heavyweight and the rest, the difference between the champion 1 through 6 and the difference between 7 to 15 is just insurmountable. It's insane, Mick Parkin, Shamil Gaziev, Waldo Cortez Acosta, Marcos Sergio de Lima, Tai Tuivasa, Derek Lewis, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, Marcin Tybura, Sergey Spivak are just not on the same level as John Jones, Tom Aspinall, Cyril Gane, Alexander Volkov, Sergey Pavlovich, Curtis Blades. The gap is so big. It's the wealth gap in America. Dare I say the gap between the wealthy and the rich. That's the gap here. Biggest shocker, there really isn't a bigger shocker. Biggest shocker, if I had to pick one, I would say, oh gosh, I don't even know who to land on. Holton Almeida at 6, because I truly thought he'd be in the top 3 had he not been shockingly TKO'd by Curtis Blades. Women's pound for pound, nothing there. Women's strawweight, absolutely nothing shocking to me. At women's flyweight, Miranda Maverick now in the rankings at 15, and Jasmine Jasudavicius passes Karine Silva from 12 to 13, or 13 to 12. Karine Silva, I think, would match up well with Miranda Maverick, but I would rather see Miranda versus Tracy Cortez personally. As for Jasmine, let's get her a top 10 opponent. She deserves it. And women's bantamweight has no new changes, but Kayla Harrison at number 2, I think may be my women's fighter of the year. But those are your final UFC ranking changes ahead of the new year, which is coming up. But in terms of the 2024 UFC year in review, it was a very good year. Very good year for the UFC. 41 total events, 19 total title fights. How about that? They are still calculating the total number of fights in total. And they're actually calculating, I think, they're still working on some other stats. I don't know how they don't have that data already. The first UFC event aired on January 13th of this year, and the final one aired on December 14th. There was a number of things that went on this year. We had some class action antitrust lawsuits that went on. A bunch of settlements were made. You also had a drug-free sport international partnership go into effect with the anti-doping program. Vince McMahon was resigned over sex trafficking and sexual assault lawsuit, and that's big because TKO owns UFC and WWE, so that really impacted the business side of things. The UFC opened a new performance institute in Mexico City in February. In April, it was announced that the TKO group was privately taken 100% over by its largest investor, Silver Lake, on a 3-year run. Interesting. There also was a new glove that was instituted from June to November, but has since been discontinued as due to the fact that it led to no knockouts. Let me just tell you, this glove absolutely hindered knockouts, and Dana White said it was being stopped because of the multiple fighter complaints. So at least they're trying to do stuff. A couple new MMA rules were implemented by the UFC, including kneeing and or kicking to the head, and the removal of the downward elbow strike, the 12-6. So that's still good. They also removed cannabis from the prohibited substance list. That went into effect in November, which was very interesting. We also had a numerous amount of releases and retirements, which is always weird to kind of go back over and kind of look at the fighters that are still here and the ones that we say goodbye to. Going alphabetically, we start with AJ Dobson being released, Abubakar Nurmagomedov, who's actually the cousin of Khabib. Alexander Gustafsson was officially released in December, but he asked for a release, and I believe he's signing with the Global Fighting League or something like that. Can't really recall. Alexander Romanov being released in November was, not too shocking, but he was coming off a win, but I just don't think they found him exciting at all. Andrei Arlovsky was released in June. Crazy at 45, he's still fighting. Brian Kelleher released in October, recognized his name from his run. Brian Barberena being released in March. Wasn't too surprised due to the fact he kept losing, but he was always kind of an exciting fighter. Carla Esparza retiring in October, and they gave her an entire video package on the prelims. Was kind of shocking, being that she was in a boring fight, which I honestly didn't think she lost. It goes to show you that sometimes the UFC does fighter packages and stuff, and other times they don't. Casey Kennedy released in March. Turns out he was a abuser of his girlfriend, which was crazy reveal. I thought he was a good guy. Guess not. Damon Jackson retired in November, known for being knocked out in brilliant fashion. David Dork being released in June. He used to be in the top 10 at flyweight and just out of nowhere just kept losing and losing. Oh, Devin Clark's been released since February. I thought he was still in the UFC. That is news to me. Interesting. Herbert Burns being released in October. Gilbert Burns' younger brother. Not very surprising. He had been finished relentlessly over and over. Jack Shore retired in December. I didn't even realize that. How depressing. I mean, Jack Shore was a Cage Warriors bantamweight champion, joined the UFC, went on like a 1-3 stretch, and just retired. How about that? Very interesting. Joanne Wood retired in March, former UFC title challenger. Did she title? I think she was only one fight away from challenging for a title. You also have Mahmoud Muradov. He was released in May. He had some exciting UFC fights. Mark Diakise released in June. Notable UFC fighter. Matthias Nikalu, former top 5 UFC flyweight, released in October, interesting enough. Muhammad Mokaev being released in July. I remember that. I still do not think Muhammad Mokaev should have been released. I do think he will make his way back to the UFC. Ovince St. Preux being released in October. Crazy to think that he's out of the UFC. Rospelis Despange being released in October. Talk about one of the wildest experiments ever. Comes in, 5-0, all knockouts, gets an 18-second knockout. And then we realize he can't grapple. He can't grapple at all. And they cut him because he was absolutely terrible. Rodrigo Nascimento released in November. Crazy in May, he was given a main event against Derek Lewis. I don't know who thought that was a good idea. Stipe Miocic retired in November. Probably the biggest retirement of the year, but long overdue. long overdue. Stipe hanging it up was a long time coming. Other than that, nothing too much. Couple other names I recognize, but nothing too exciting. In terms of debuting fighters, we had a notable number of debut fighters, which was exciting. Andre Lima joining the UFC, a flyweight, who was bit in his debut by his opponent. Funny enough, I think, oh my gosh, I hope I see his name. I hope I see the name of whoever he fought, because it was pretty wild. Who else? Carlos Prates, maybe debut fighter of the year, 4 fights, 4 knockouts, and is now in the top 15 at men's welterweight. You also had Wang Kong, who debuted as a minus 900 favorite, then proceeded to get finished in round number 2. Very unfortunate for prediction-wise. Ibo Aslan, he debuted this year in, UFC on ESPN 54. What even is that? March 30th. He just came in with some beautiful knockouts, including one in, I want to say, he got a China knockout in November with a nasty round 1 knockout. I can't recall. I think it was actually it was in Brazil, I believe. Speaking of Brazil, Gene Silva of the Fighting Nerds, same camp as Carlos Prates. He had an amazing year debuting notable UFC knockouts. He was a super fun fighter to watch this year. Knockouts of Drew Dober, Charles Jourdain, Weston Wilson, and Kevin Vallejos was on the contender series. He actually went 3-0, but still very talented. Hanada Diaz was poised as a top UFC heavyweight before being knocked out by Marcin Tybura in round number 2. Jordan Vucevic, he was a fun fighter to see debut this year. Kaya Sakura, crazy. He debuted to a title shot and was handsomely submitted. Kayla Harrison, probably the women's fighter of the year overall, 2 UFC fights, and now she's the number 2 contender in the world. She was very interesting to see debut this year. MVP, Michael Venom Page. So far, 2 boring fights in the UFC, but I know that one with Shara in Saudi Arabia is going to be fantastic. Mauricio Ruffy debuted this year, another fighter out of the Fighting Nerds camp with Kyle Barallo, Carlos Prates, Gene Silva. I know he's got some exciting fights in his future. He just had a bit of a challenge last time out at UFC 309. Omar Sy debuting this year, a great talented light heavyweight. He's on the verge of the rankings. Don't be surprised if he's ranked next year. Rainer De Ritter, former 1 double champion, over in Japan and Asia. He debuted this year, and he's got a fight with Kevin Holland coming up. Very exciting stuff. Robelis Desponge, funny enough, here as soon as he was gone, he was funny to see. Ryan Loder, who won the Ultimate Fighter. I think his debut is coming up next year. Timothy Kawamba, recognize his name. Tuco Tucos, Walter Walker. I recognize a lot of these names, pretty much because I've gone through all of them. But it's just crazy to see that who remains and who's gone. Some unfortunate news on suspended fighters. Walt Harris suspended until July of 2027 for testing positive for drostatalone and its metabolites, exogenous and testosterone. Ooh, very rough. Cleo Roundtree Jr. had a little 3-month suspension. Interesting enough. Still got a title shot, though. Bruno Silva, he had a little suspension. Interesting. Arman Sarukian, I'll never forget that. He actually is still under suspension until January 12th due to slapping a fan, which was so warranted. I don't know why we got mad at him for that. But Arman Sarukian, he'll be back in action. Weird to think that he was suspended, but ladies and gentlemen, let's go through every UFC event this year. We won't try and make it too long, but like I said, this is the final wrapping up of the year for 2024. That was, Igor Severino bit Andre Lima. He was awarded a Bite of the Night bonus because Igor Severino was disqualified for biting him. We're going to probably bring that up again. Kicked off the year at the Apex, Magomed Ankalaev, Johnny Walker. Good main event. Good main event to kick off the year. And I mean, we started off the year with 3 straight TKOs. Joshua Van got TKO. Nicholas Motor revived his career with a TKO. And the debut of Gene Silva, who got a TKO. Also had Marcus McGee getting a finish on there. Waldo Cortez Acosta being the final man to beat Andrei Arlovsky in the UFC. Bruno Ferreira with a nasty knockout of Phil Hawes. And Jim Miller getting another face crank submission. I mean, who does not love a little Jim Miller? And Magomed Ankalaev absolutely knocking Johnny Walker out silly was fantastic. You had 4 performance bonuses, and early on in the year, I mean, first event, we had a knockout contender with Magomed Ankalaev and Johnny Walker, and a submission contender with Jim Miller. And who even was he fighting? Some irrelevant fighter. After that, first pay-per-view of the year, UFC 297, Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis, going down in Canada. I remember I was at the bar when this was going on, watching on my phone, and everyone was around me watching it, and main event was kind of boring. But prelims, very mediocre. You had no Canadian men win on this card. Every Canadian man lost. It was so funny. Sergey Sadeh, Charles Jourdain, Brad Katona, Johan Laness, Malcolm Gordon. It was absolutely hilarious. The only Canadians on this card to win, how about Jasmine Yazoo DeVicious and, Jillian Robertson. Kicking off the main card, Movsar Evloev, Arnold Allen. That was an entertaining fight. We got another taste of Movsar Evloev this year. Chris Curtis and Marc-Andre Barriault looked more like a sparring match. Then what I think is going to be my comeback fight of the year, probably Neil Magny versus Mike Malott. Neil Magny down 2 rounds, gets a TKO with 15 seconds left. I mean, it was insane, and Mike Malott should never have even been put in that situation. Gets a thumbs up for me. Neil Magny over Mike Malott. That was entertaining. First title fight of the year, Hakon Penta and Mario Bueno Silva, a boring fight. Oh my gosh. Mario Bueno Silva goes out, dominates Hakon Penta in round 1, and then I don't know if she gassed out. I don't know what happened to her, but does nothing the rest of the fight. It was utterly atrocious. 49-46 across the board, even a 49-45. It was just a boring fight. Main event, Sean Strickland, Dricus du Plessis back and forth. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to say it. I was shocked to see a split decision. I thought Dricus du Plessis won that 3-2 pretty handsomely. But that's just me. I could even have seen a 49-46 case for Dricus du Plessis. Maybe it's bias. Maybe it's because I'm not a big fan of Sean Strickland. But, I mean, it was, from what I saw, I thought Dricus du Plessis did enough to get the victory. Following our first pay-per-view of the year, we began one of the worst stretches I've ever seen in the UFC's history. So, from, I would say, I'll actually say it's February to April. From February to April, we did not really have a good fight night. Okay, every pay-per-view in that stretch, 298, 299, 300, fantastic. Every fight night, just atrocious. UFC Vegas 85, Roman Dolidze versus Nasruddin Imavov, just a doozy. I mean, we go to the prelims, just decision after decision. And I mean, don't get me wrong, you had Lujan Carolina getting a TKO with 8 seconds left. Okay, somewhat entertaining. You had Themba Gorimbo knocking out Pete Rodriguez in 32 seconds. Pete Rodriguez sucked. You had Charles Johnson kicking off what he could be the number 4 fighter of the year. Probably comeback of the year fighter. Charles Johnson upsetting the undefeated Azat Maksum to regain a UFC contract. Incredible. You also had Molly McCann getting an armbar with 1 second left in round number 1. Then Charles Radke knocks out Gilbert Urbina with a nasty TKO. Then you get an eye poke between Alishka Babkrizov and Makhmud Muradov, and it would be the last time we saw them fight in the UFC. Then, now Natalia Silva and Viviane Araújo, not awful, but just Natalia Silva dominating Viviane Araújo through 3 rounds. After that, Randy Brown knocked out Muslim Slikov. Great straight punch, looked great. Renato Moicano, Drew Dober, not the most entertaining. Kind of just Moicano out-grappling Drew Dober. That was tail of the fight. Main event, Nasruddin Imavov, Roman Dolidze. I have no idea how the judges even scored this, but there was a majority decision, 49-44, 47-47, and 48-46. I scored it 50-45 for Nasruddin Imavov. I was so confused when the judges read the scorecards. I just think out of all this, all the decisions worked out well, but it was a pretty boring fight night. Especially the main event. Main event did not hit that well because Nasruddin almost finished him in round 1, almost finished him in round 4, just couldn't get the finish. After that, we head back to the Apex next weekend, Jack Hermansson, Joe Pyfer, and all anyone remembers from this is the fact that Joe Pyfer won the first 2 rounds, then dropped the last 3, and it was weird to see Jack Hermansson outstriking someone. That just didn't look right. Also on the card, we kicked things off with a groin kick. Then, Haider Emil and Bogdan Guskov getting nasty knockouts was good. I actually remember I was walking over to my friend's house. It's like a 30-minute walk to my buddy's apartment, which I actually now live in, and they have townhomes more like it. And I remember I was watching these fights on my phone. Boring decisions all throughout the prelims. 4 straight boring decisions. Carlos Prates knocking out Trevin Giles. Little did I know that Carlos Prates was going to be as good as he was, but he was incredible. Main card gets going. Rodolfo Vieira gets a submission, a boring decision. Gregor Rodriguez brutalizes Brad Tavares. Ira Portera and Robert Brzezinski, boring decision. Biggest highlight of the night, probably Dan Ige with a nasty knockout of Andre Fili. And then, like I mentioned, just a boring fight in the main event. No fight of the night here. None whatsoever. But then we headed to the Honda Center in Anaheim, California for UFC 298. I remember Lexi was visiting me down in college, and we were watching this, and it was just fantastic. We get things going, 2 boring decisions. You get a little TKO on the prelims. Zhang Mingyang with a nasty knockout of Brenson Ribeiro. Rinya Nakamura dominates Carlos Vera. No reason Rinya should not have finished him there. Junior Tafa stepping on short notice, getting finished with leg kicks, and then out of nowhere, maybe the best women's fight of the year on Amanda Lemos versus Mackenzie Dern. I mean, it was insane. It was bloody. It was intense. So many close submissions. So many moments I thought Mackenzie Dern was going to get knocked out. I mean, the final prelim of the night was lighting things on fire. It was an absolutely amazing final prelim. Get to the main card. The rise of Anthony Hernandez. Forgot about how good Anthony Hernandez was this year. Submitted Roman Kopilov. After that, Merab Dvalishvili beating Henry Cejudo. This is before Merab took on Sean O'Malley later in the year. This was crazy to see Merab dominating Henry Cejudo. After that, Ian Gary, Jeff Neal. We thought this would be a better performance than he had against Neil Magny, which was a very good performance in August of 2023. But this one was very dull. A lot of distance striking, and when it went to a split decision, I was so taken aback. I mean, the scorecards were 30-27, 28-29, and 30-27. It was easily 3 rounds ripped for Ian Gary. I don't know who scored it for Jeff Neal, but just blasphemy. Main event, co-main event, Paulo Costa, Robert Whittaker, maybe the best co-main event of the year. This probably should have won fight of the night over Lemos and Dern, but I'm not necessarily too mad they gave it to Amanda Lemos and Mackenzie Dern. But I mean, there was a moment, end of round 1, where Paulo Costa landed a spinning wheel kick to Whittaker and had him full on wobbled, and the round ended. And that probably won him round number 1. Round 2 and 3, you just saw how damn good Robert Whittaker was. The striking, the takedown defense, and Robert Whittaker did his thing. But a great fight between Whittaker and Costa. It's a shame how the year ended for Costa and Whittaker, but they delivered a banger fight here. Main event, we all know Tapira knocks out Volkanovski, and the year of Tapira officially began. I mean, the thing is I wasn't shocked at all. I actually predicted a round 1 knockout for Tapira, and he got it done in round 2. It was no surprise to me. It was really no surprise. I knew how good he was, and Volk's chin after the Islam Makhachev fight was just not all there. This was not shocking to me, but it was still insane to see Tapira get it done. After that, we headed to Mexico City, in which I thought would be the best fight night of the year, and, it wasn't. Just littered with decisions. We get the night going. Eric Silva hurts his leg 44 seconds into his fight with Muhammad Naimov. No idea what to do with that. Bunch of decisions on the prelims. You had a couple submissions here and there. Nothing really too exciting. Performance-wise, you got stuff on the main card. Manuel Torres defeating Chris Duncan with a submission. That was impressive. Yasmin Jericho, Sam Hughes fell short. Zluper and Prado, fight of the night, was a very good fight. Very talented fight. We're going to talk about Daniel Zluper later on in what I think is actually going to be fight of the year, potentially. Co-main event, Brian Ortega, Yair Rodriguez, the only fight of the year for Yair. This was the most frustrating fight to watch as a Yair Rodriguez supporter. I couldn't believe watching it. Yair Rodriguez was so much better than Brian Ortega on the feet. He leagues better, and he kept getting taken down, and finally round 3 gets taken down early on and gets submitted with an arm triangle choke. I couldn't believe it. I was like, are you freaking kidding me, Yair? Are you freaking kidding me? But Brian Ortega, massive win here. Really, really spoke to how durable and how hard it is to finish this guy. Incredible stuff. Main event, Brandon Royval, Brandon Moreno. Split decision went to Royval. Nothing happened. Nothing happened across this entire fight. Nothing happened. It was so boring. I was watching Royval just barely edge out Moreno, and this was the definition of Royval with power for Moreno. Moreno had more power in his shots, but more volume, if you will, for Brandon Royval. And Royval got the split decision, and we actually got another taste of this with Brandon Royval later on in the year. After that, what I think may be the worst fight night event of the year, it's up there with actually the one that followed. pretty much right after it, you had Jairzinho Rozenstruik taking out Shamil Gaziev. And you have two guys who combined had only, I think, 1 or 2 wins, not by knockout. You go to this fight, and it goes 4 rounds, and it's just Jairzinho Rozenstruik just basically treating Shamil Gaziev like a punching bag, and Shamil does nothing about it. And I thought Shamil Gaziev was going to be the biggest rising heavyweight of the year. I thought he was going to win this, get a knockout, and it turned out Shamil Gaziev was nowhere near ready. So such a lackluster main event. The main card, 3 straight decisions. It was utterly ridiculous. I watched Vitor Petrino, who is such a finisher, barely get past Tyson Pedro. Moma Moikaev and Alex Perez. Moma Moikaev grapples Alex Perez. All right, Umar Nurmagomedov, Bekzat Almakhan, more grappling for Umar Nurmagomedov. And by the way, he almost got knocked out in the opening seconds of that. Best moment of the night, Steve Erceg knocked out Matt Schnell cold with a cross and actually led him to gain a title shot. You also had Eric Anders getting a win. The nasty knockout that was Vincius Oliveira versus Bernardo Sopage. Oh my gosh, flying knee with under 20 seconds left. Are you freaking kidding me? It was insane. Other than that, nothing too much. Very lackluster main event. I'm going to remember it for that Vincius Oliveira and Bernardo Sopage knockout and that Steve Erceg knockout. Beautiful knockouts there. Other than that, nothing entertaining. Following that, UFC 299, I think it might be the second or third best pay-per-view of the entire year. I mean, from the get-go, so entertaining, you know. On the early prelims, you had Robelis Desponge, when he was good, knocking out Josh Parchin in 18 seconds. You also had Michelle Pereira submitting Michael Okajacek in 1 minute and 1 second. So entertaining. Rest of the prelims, Kyler Phillips beating Pedro Munez, expected, boring decision. Matheus Gamrot defeating Rafael dos Anjos, expected, boring decision. Macy Barber defeating Caitlin Sermonera, expected, boring decision. Curtis Blades, Halton Almeida, final prelim of the night. First off, was shocked this wasn't on the main card. You watched Halton Almeida set the heavyweight takedown record in a round on the previous holder in Curtis Blades, and then opening seconds of round number 2, shoots for another takedown and just gets hammer-fisted into oblivion by Curtis Blades, and Curtis Blades gets a win. Kind of a feel-good moment. Was happy for them, but this main card, holy cow. Petr Yan, Song Yadong, talk about getting us going with a bang. Oh my gosh, Petr Yan was so back. Song Yadong was such a dog, entertaining as ever. Jack Del Madelena, Gilbert Burns, gonna be up there when I do my rewards for comeback of the year. Gilbert Burns using his grappling against Jack Del Madelena. The striking was looking good for Jack. And I believe it was with just over 1.5 minutes left. We're back on the feet. Gilbert shoots for another takedown. Eats a knee from Jack Del Madelena. Jack lands another punch. Down he goes. TKOs him. And Jack Del Madelena would move into the top 5 at welterweight. After that, we watched the debut of MVP against Kevin Holland. And look, it wasn't entertaining, but it wasn't awful to an extent because we were watching how weird Michael Page was striking and Kevin Holland was getting frustrated on not being able to deal with it. But I think MVP will have a good performance coming up in the UFC. After that, co-main event, Dustin Poirier, Benoit Saint-Denis. I've never been more on the edge of my seat, I think, than for this fight. This was utterly ridiculous. I mean, I was watching Dustin Poirier jump the guillotine over and over. His striking on Benoit was looking good. Then Benoit would take him down. Benoit would almost submit him. Benoit would have him rattled up against the cage. And then round 2 comes around, and little did we know Benoit Saint-Denis had a staph infection, but it didn't matter. These two are trading back and forth. And then, Dustin drops him. Down goes Benoit. Goes for a guillotine again. Leaves it. Throws him off. Hits him with another punch. He's wobbled. Hits him with a straight. Clips him. He's knocked out. And oh my gosh, I was watching with all my family and my cousins, uncles and aunts, and we were going crazy. Dustin Poirier, Benoit Saint-Denis, one of the more underrated fights of the year. Then the main event, it's so rare where you get a 5-round fight where it's just one fighter dominating. And it's so entertaining. Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Vera is that fight where you could watch 5 rounds of one guy dominating, and it's so entertaining. I mean, he took Marlon Vera to school. Marlon Vera's face was swollen like a balloon. It was ridiculous. And the knee he landed on Marlon Vera, it was so hard. It hurt my jaw. I was like feeling my jaw going, is my jaw attached? After hearing that, it was ridiculous. Super entertaining, and it's a shame to see where both of these guys ended up, especially Sean. But right here, Sean was on top of the world. After that, back to the Apex, and oh my gosh, just brutal. UFC Fight Night, Tuivasa versus Tybura. This was rough. This was really rough. This might be the worst fight night of the entire night. I take back. I think this is the worst fight night. And I mean, it's hard to find some positives on this card. I mean, we get things going, boring decision. Then Thiago Moises gets a leg kick. Okay. Jacqueline Moram's armbar, okay. Rafael Filos made Ode Osborne, okay. All the decisions were boring. Mike Davis made Nathan Levy, okay. Gerald Mearshart submitting Brian Barberina, somewhat entertaining. Macy Choice-Sons submitting Pankianzad, okay. Then Christian Rodriguez defeating Isaac Dolgarian by split decision. Did not see that coming. Kenyon Chukwu being outclassed by Elvin St. Preux. That makes no sense looking at where both of them are right now. Co-main event, Brian Battle Angelusa and I Poke ruins it. And then the main event, I watched Marcin Tybura clearly have no striking counter for Tai Tuivasa, and I watched Tai Tuivasa have no counter for Tybura's wrestling. Tybura took him down, took his back, and submitted him with a rear naked chokehold, and it was just depressing. Nothing entertaining on here, no fight of the night, gave out a couple finish bonuses, just a boring UFC Apex event. And then you wondered, hey, can you top that? And they went, hold my tea, and we get Amanda Ribas versus Rose Namajunas, UFC Fight Night. And I mean, holy cow, kick things off. Mick Park and Muhammad Usman, so boring. Then Andre Lima is bit by Igor Severino. We've never had someone get bit in the UFC. Utterly insane. Then another decision. Oh, we get a standing guillotine. Yay. Another decision. Main card, we get a submission. Okay. Yusuf Salas main Billy Corntillo. Pretty entertaining. Peyton Talbot knocking out Cameron Saman. Love that. Edmund Shabazi knocking out AJ Dobson. Love that. Co-main event, I watched Carl Williams out-grapple Justin Tafa for 3 rounds. So boring. Then Rose Namajunas and Amanda Ribas, I turned it off after round 3. It was so bad, and it ended, so boring. We need to have Rose Namajunas take on strikers. I need to see her get knocked out. She is the least entertaining fighter on the roster. Ridiculous. Following that, headed to Atlantic City, March 30th, for a little New Jersey fight night, and not too bad. Not too bad. Couple finishes to open up the card. Aibel Aslan, Anton Krljic was such an entertaining fight of the night. Loved that. You also had Julio Arce finally knocking out Herbert Burns, kicking him out of the UFC. Nate Landwehr beating Jamal Emmers with a nasty knockout round 1. Loved that. Couple of mediocre fights to open up the main card. Kyle Nelson defeating Bill Algeo, early stoppage. Nosutin Ruzaboyev and Cedric Dumas. It was debated if it was a eye poke or not. Chris Weidman and Bruno Silva was sloppy. Joaquin Buckley finishing Vicente Luque just looked awkward. It looked like Luque took a dive. And then Manon Fiorot and Aaron Blanchfield, 5 straight rounds of Manon Fiorot just being barely better than Aaron Blanchfield. It wasn't bad as a whole, but when I look back, all I remember is that Nate Landwehr knockout. Following that, UFC Vegas 90, one of my favorite UFC Vegases that I've been able to witness. I mean, super entertaining. This is what I look for, When I look at this, nothing too good on the prelims. All right, nothing too good on the prelims. Norma Dumont defeating German Randami. Didn't see that coming. We kick things off. Charlie Campbell, Trevor Peake. It goes the distance. It was entertaining. Ignacio Mohammed knocking out Christios Galgos with a head kick. I can't believe Ignacio gets another head kick. Chepe Mariscal, Morgan Cherie. Talk about 2 guys that any night could be the best featherweight on the planet. Fight of the night easily. Amazing. Damon Jackson, Alexander Hernandez. Pretty mediocre. Then, Brendan Allen, Chris Curtis 2, the rematch. In the main event. Goes to a split decision. Goes all 5 rounds. It was weird to see. It's going the distance. It's kind of like it builds a momentum too. When a fight builds, that's what I look for. Round 2 is better than 1. 3 was better than 2. 4 was better. And then 5 was just a climax of amazingness. And it went down to the wire. Brendan Allen going for submissions. Chris Curtis trying to get him out on the feet. This was super entertaining. I literally stood up in my living room at my old apartment and applauded the TV. This was fantastic. Very entertaining. And it was the perfect appetizer before the thing that followed, which was from the T-Mobile Arena. It's obviously fight event of the year. I don't even know if I'm going to do events of the year because it's just so obvious. UFC 300. Just fantastic. Just utterly fantastic. UFC 300 was everything you could want and more. I mean, it was just so phenomenal. Kicking things off, Figueiredo and Garbrandt. Figueiredo submits Garbrandt. Expected. Bobby Green blooding Jim Miller was kind of sad to see, but, not too bad. It's the early prelims. Andrade beating Marina Rodriguez by split decision. competitive fight. I'll give them that. They're on the prelims. They're two top 5 women. Hinata Moicano, Jalen Turner. I've never choke job of the year is Jalen Turner almost having a knockout of Moicano, trying to get a walk-off. Moicano was able to eat it, gets back to his feet, is then able to take him down, and then submits him. So Moicano, his year trajectory went upwards, and after this event, Turner's went downwards. We get into the regular prelims, the rise of Diego Lopez. Talk about a 1:29 TKO of Sodiq Yusuff. I mean, no one finishes Sodiq Yusuff like that. Diego Lopez is with 2 nasty uppercut knockdowns. He knocked him down twice in the first minute. Holy cow, Diego Lopez, super entertaining. Kayla Harrison, her debut, submits Holly Holm. We predicted Holly Holm would be the biggest fall off of the year, and Kayla Harrison proving us right here. After that, Sterling and Cater, there's nothing to do when we know Aljamain Sterling's game plan is to take you down, and we know Calvin Cater wants to keep it on the feet. Cater couldn't do anything. If anything, he was able to survive being submitted, but this was just a boring fight. Now, as for the main event of the prelims, the final prelim of the night, Jiri Prochazka, Alexander Rakic. Talk about 8 minutes and 17 seconds of glorious striking. Round 1, typical Jiri fashion. Rakic is laying into him, all right? Jiri's looking like he's going to get knocked out. Then round 2, something flipped around the 2-minute mark of round 2, and Jiri was just landing everything, and he was ducking everything, and he has Rakic running, and he's hitting him with uppercuts, he's hitting him with crosses, and he's banging him in the face, and Rakic stumbles down after getting clipped, and he's getting TKO'd, his face is getting pounded into that, and Jiri Prochazka is back. And mind you, he got a title shot off of this performance. It was incredible. We get into the main card. Bo Nickel submits Cody Brundage, round 2. Kind of boring, but also kind of cool to see Bo Nickel continuing to thrive. After that, Arman Saruki and Charles Oliveira. What a competitive matchup. Talk about going to the judges' scorecard, and I'm like, I won't be mad at what they choose, but I feel like whatever they choose will not be right. And it was just like, they were so close. I'm talking, this should have been a draw. It was so competitive. Arman gets the split decision. I love the decision, but I honestly had it Oliveira 2-1. I gave Oliveira 1 and 3 in my personal opinion. 1 to Oliveira was set in stone. 2 to Arman Sarukian was set in stone. It was 3 that was up for grabs, and Arman won the first half. Oliveira won the second half, and it was just so close. A technical matchup. Nothing too flashy, very technical matchup. After that, Holloway and Gaethje, what I think people forget here, all right? People think this is fight of the year. This is not fight of the year. Okay, I just want to get this across. Holloway and Gaethje is an amazing fight. It's up there for fight of the year. Mind you, this is knockout of the year. What Holloway did to Gaethje with a second left, knockout of the year, hands down. But look, stacking this fight up against other fights, yeah, you have the big names. Yeah, you have the knockout power. Yeah, you have the knockout to end the fight. Yeah, you have some cool moves that Gaethje attempted. But in all honesty, I saw better fights. I saw better fights throughout the year, so this fight is incredible, but it is not the fight of the year. So, knockout of the year, it's just impossible not to give it to Max Holloway here, but people saying this is also fight of the year, I'm going to respectfully disagree. Co-main event, Zhang Weili, Yan Xiaonan, pretty boring. You know, the first 3 rounds are super entertaining. If this is a 3-round fight, this could be fight of the night, okay? What I was watching was Zhang Weili dominate Yan Xiaonan, and then Yan would just randomly clip Zhang and drop her. It was so crazy. Almost thought Zhang Weili was going to get knocked out. Almost thought that Yan Xiaonan was going to get knocked out after round 1. And then after round 3, Weili just went to the grappling. And that's just how she ended the fight. So Zhang Weili, her only fight of the year. People are saying she is women's fight of the year. I don't think a fighter of the year can have just one fight. I think they have to have at least 2. At least 2. We get to the main event. And this is where you have your first fighter of the year. That is Alex Pereira, Jamal Hill, and I'm going to say first fight for the fight of the year. That moment versus Jamal Hill, this is moment of the year. There are a lot of great moments this year, okay? But, you know, as shocking as Yito Pira knockout Max Holloway was, this moment was just unsurmountable. You know, I'm watching Hill and Pereira. I'm realizing any punch can land, they go out, all right? Jamal Hill nut shots Pereira. Watching this live, you go, ooh, Pereira holds out his hand to Herb Dean. Everyone's laughing. And literally the commentary's reaction is me and my buddy's reaction in the living room. We're like, oh, no way, all right? Puts his hand back, Jamal swings, para counters, clips him, drops him, starts landing some follow-up punches. We're going ballistic. I'm about to throw my beer in the air. It was insane. And Pereira knocks him out, then starts hitting him with the putting his hands out like what Adesanya did to him. It was insane. And little did I know Alex Pereira would not have just one more moment after this, but two more the rest of the year. Alex Pereira Fight of the Year and UFC 300 is what got this going. It was incredible. After that, back to the UFC Apex, and not too bad of an event. Not too bad. You had Matheus Nicolau versus Alex Perez. Not too bad, On the prelims, a lot of decisions, had a couple of submissions, nothing memorable. Main card, David Onama, Jonathan Pierce was somewhat entertaining. You had Hanad Diaz faceplating Austin Lane with a knockout. Bogdan Guskov knocking out Ryan Spann. And then you had a knockout in the main event. Alex Perez knockout Matheus Nicolau 2 minutes in round 2. That looked exactly like the knockout of Yito Pira and Alexander Volkanovski. It was like eerily similar. That was a super entertaining moment. Alex Perez knocking him out. That's what gets a thumbs up for me. Other than that, there was no fight of the nights. You just had 4 knockouts. They got 4 performance bonuses. There's nothing much to look at. They're just another filler Apex event. After that, we head to the Farmácia Arena in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. 14,514 UFC fans packed the arena. Pretty good. Early prelims. We got the night going. A Brazilian got a TKO. Love that. Also had the debut of Mauricio Ruffi, who brutalized Jamie Malarkey, was doing a scissor takedown, was landing some nasty straights, knocked him out 4 minutes in. Phenomenal. Regular prelims, we had 3 decisions. You did have the unearthly amazing fight between Mike Tabek and Elvis Brenner. That was a banger. That was a great fight. Little did I know Mike Tabek would top his fight with Elvis Brenner later on in the year, but that was a gritty fight. Rhea Anderson Brito defeating Jack Shore. Actually, you could better off say retiring Jack Shore. I think this was the fight that retired Jack. I can't recall. Actually, I think it was another fight. But Anderson Brito beating him by cutting Jack's leg open. His leg was bleeding, kind of on his shin, and the doctor stopped it. Very weird moment. Main card gets going. Kyle Barallo knocks out Paul Craig in round 2. Phenomenal. Kyle Barallo, biggest rising middleweight of the year. Love that. Then Michelle Pereira, who just submitted Michael Okajacek, 2 months earlier, came back and submits Ayo Patero with a standing guillotine choke 54 seconds in the round 1. Phenomenal. Then Anthony Smith, Vitor Petrino. Anthony Smith landing a shocking upset guillotine choke after almost getting knocked out. It was insane. Then Jose Aldo, Jonathan Martinez. Just great to see Jose Aldo still having it in the tank. It's 2 thumbs up. That was a feel-good moment. Actually, taking him down in round 3 was pretty shocking. Crowd was loving it. Main event, Pantoja Usyk. I missed it. I somehow missed this. I don't know if I just lost interest. I remember I was with Lexi, and I think we were watching a movie or something, and I just lost interest in this. But from all I've heard is that it was back and forth, came down to the final round. It was a 48-47. Don't be swayed by the biased Brazilian 49-46 judge. But at the end of the day, it came down to how many takedowns Pantoja was landing. And after looking at all the other opponents, Usyk did a pretty damn good job compared to some other ones. Following that, headed to the Enterprise Arena in St. Louis, Missouri, as Derek Lewis took on Alan Nascimento. First off, who gave Nascimento? Who gave Rodrigo Nascimento, the main event here? Made absolutely no sense, but Derek Lewis knocks him out in round 3. It was so frustrating because Derek would get taken down, and you're just like, oh, man, Derek's going to get taken down, submitted. And you get back up, and you're like, come on, knock him out. And he finally knocked him out. Also on the card, you had Joaquin Buckley, ending the win streak of Nursultan Ruzaboyev. Super entertaining. A 12-second knockout from Carlos Ulberg. Hello, Carlos Ulberg knocking out Lenzo Menfield in 2 minutes. Also had a crazy fight between Carlos Diego Ferreira and Matheus Rebecca, where Carlos is down and then manages to get a TKO with 9 seconds left. Also had Sean Woodson getting a win. Waldo Cortez Acosta getting a win. Chase Hooper destroying Vyacheslav Borshev. That was pretty entertaining. The dirty head kick that Esteban Rivovic landed on Terrence McKinney. There were some cool moments there, and Charles Johnson getting his 2nd win of the year over Jake Hadley. So some good moments on here. I think a lot of disaster was avoided at this St. Louis card. Following that, headed back for a very simple, not too bad UFC Apex event. We saw some bad ones this year. this one wasn't too bad. Who was it? Edson Barbosa, Leron Murphy. Prelims, pretty run-of-the-mill, a lot of decisions. Omar Sy landed a face crank finish. Tom Nolan got TKO over Victor Martinez. That Tom Nolan-Victor Martinez fight, actually, Tom Nolan was almost knocked out, gets back to his feet, lands a knee as Victor's coming in. Victor gets hurt to the body, and Tom Nolan TKOs him. We go to the main card. Angela Hill gets her first ever career submission at almost 40 years old. Incredible, Angela. Adrian Yanez getting back in the win column with a round 1 TKO. Thema Garimbo domination. Chaos Williams with a knockout punch. And then Leron Murphy, Edson Barbosa putting on a fight of the night. Good work, gentlemen. Pretty run-of-the-mill. UFC 302 was up next June 1st, our halfway point of the year. Actually, I guess July 1st would be. But, this one, Prudential Center, just over 17,000, actually close to 18,000 fans were at this event. And this one just had so much potential, and it just didn't deliver. On the prelims, we had 7 prelims, 1 finish. Halton Almeida submitting Alexander Romanov in 2 minutes. Other than that, just grappling. And we get to the main card, and it's another decision. Finally, Kevin Holland ends this with a round 1 armbar of Michael Okajacek. Beautiful. Then, the biggest letdown fight, I think, of the entire year. Sean Strickland, Paulo Costa, just 5 rounds of all I could describe it as is just, I don't even, how would I even describe this? I mean, just sparring, casual striking. I mean, nothing entertaining, nothing in the slightest. It was so boring. But then the main event, Islam Makhachev, Dustin Poirier. I don't know if I can give it any awards. One fight of the night, one performance of the night for Islam Makhachev, but when matched up to other fights of the year, just, I don't know if I can give it anything else, like a, submission of the year. We had better submissions. You also, had better fight of the nights, but the time and place for this main event was outstanding. This main event saved this entire card. This reminded me of Rocky versus Ivan Dragunov. This was Russia versus America. This was Dustin Poirier's final. It was the last chance. It was the final opportunity for Dustin Poirier, and he got it done. It was, he didn't get it done, but, it was entertaining watching him do it. So, UFC 302, the only positive, Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier, just a wild, wild event. Following that, I watched UFC Kentucky, UFC Louisville, if you will, at a, what do you want to call it? What are they called? What restaurant? I watched it with one of my buddies at a restaurant in Chicago. It was super entertaining. Oh, Twin Peaks, super entertaining. Not too bad. Not too bad in Louisville, their first return there. We got things kicked off with, my goodness, there were 8 prelims, and there was only 1 finish, and it was Carlos Prates getting a finish. So prelims, kind of rough to start off the evening. Get the main card going, boring decision. Then Zachary Reese knocks out Julian Marquez in 20 seconds. That's what I'm talking about, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Then Bruno Ferreira, spinning back fist knockout of Dustin Stolfus. That's what I'm talking about. Raul Rosas Jr. finishes Ricky Tercios all day. Love that. Dominic Reyes back in action, knocking out Dustin Jacoby in 2 minutes. I was on fire. I was out of my seat going crazy. That, what was I having? Coors Banquet? I think that Coors Banquet was hitting me a little too good. Nazanin Imavov and Jared Cannonier in the main event. A premature stoppage, but overall, UFC Louisville, super entertaining. And Ricky Tercios flipping off Raul Rosas Jr. to start round number 2 and then getting submitted. Gotta be one of my favorite moments of the year. Following all that excitement, we headed to the Apex, and it was just, another Apex event. And these Apex events just drain you, honestly. They really do. Prelims, I mean, nothing exciting at all. Main card, really the only moment on this entire thing was Tatsuro Taira defeating Alex Perez by knee injury. Yeah, that's all we had. So Tatsuro Taira got a win. You're supposed to have Andre Muniz and Ikram Alkaserov at this event, but Muniz withdrew. So that was kind of the downer here. We then got to June 22nd, went to Saudi Arabia. I remember this event because I was actually getting a new car with my parents, and we were at the dealership, and I was watching this. This one didn't disappoint at all. This one delivered pretty well. I'm happy with a lot of stuff on here. There were some downers. Okay, there were some downers. Renat Fakhradeev, Nicholas Dalby, entertaining fight on the prelims. Felipe Lima, Muhammad Naimov, entertaining. Nasrat Hakbasra on Jared Gooden, honestly, not too bad. Volkan Ozdemir knocking out Johnny Walker. That was wild, all right? Shara Magomedov playing with his food, you could say, against Antonio Tricoli, finally TKO'ing him in round number 3. Played around with him too much. Gastelum and Rodriguez went at it. Volkov and Pavlovich kind of a letdown. It really was. But then the fastest minute and 49 seconds I've ever watched in a fight as Robert Whittaker knocks out Ikram Alkazarov on short notice due to Khamzat Chimaev pulling out. And Robert Whittaker, the man. Robert Whittaker was the man. I mean, he was 2-0 at this point of the year. And it was just crazy to see Ikram Alkazarov losing by uppercut knockout the exact same way he had lost to Khamzat Chimaev the year prior. It's so crazy that's how he has lost both of his career fights. But not too bad. After that, UFC 303 to end out June. This event just faced a lot of issues. For first off, start of June, you're supposed to have Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler, and the fight falls apart. Fight falls completely apart. Then supposed to have Jamal Hill and Khalil Roundtree Jr. That fight falls apart. You're then supposed to have Carlos Ulberg versus Jamal Hill. That fight falls apart. Then supposed to have Carlos Ulberg versus Anthony Smith. That fight falls apart. You end up with Anthony Smith, Roman Dolidze. So, a lot of issues faced this card, but what we got wasn't too bad. Early prelims, all decisions. Then Peyton Talbot gets a 19-second knockout. Mwah. Chef's kiss. Chef's kiss, all I gotta say. Gene Silva knocking out Charles Jourdain with an uppercut. Love that. Andre Fili beating Cub Swanson in a fight of the night. I'll always take that. Then Joe Pyfer flatlining Marc-Andre Balliot with a nasty KO all day. Main card, Ian Gary MVP falls very short. Very, very short. Macy Chiasson bloodying Mauro Bueno Silva to a pulp. Oddly entertaining. Roman Dolidze, Anthony Smith, boring fight. Diego Lopez de Andrade, mind you, that fight came together on 4 hours' notice. That was the craziest moment of this card. I can't believe that. And then main event, Alex Pereira knocks out Jiri Prochazka 13 seconds in the round 2 after almost dropping him. Actually, he did drop him. After almost knocking him out at the end of round 1. I mean, the rise of Alex Pereira this year was just insane to witness. After that, we headed to Denver, Colorado, and for some reason they thought it'd be a good idea to give Rose Namajunas another main event, and she was originally supposed to take on Macy Barber. Macy had to pull out. Instead, you get Tracy Cortez. So, yeah, pretty brutal. Pretty brutal. That's all I got to say there. In terms of the fight night, just average. Montel Jackson knocking out Demond Blackshear in 18 seconds. Love that. That was entertaining. Charles Johnson knocking out Joshua Van made me sad because I'm a Joshua Van fan, but seeing Charles Johnson get his 3rd win of the year was pretty wild. I think that was pretty cool. Couple of illegal elbows ended our first fight of the main card. Julian Erosa submitting Christian Rodriguez was depressing. Gabriel Braunfeim going the distance was dumb. Gene Silva having his fight against Drew Dober stopped due to doctor stoppage on Drew Dober for a cut was wild. Boring co-main event, boring main event. This fight was another dud. We gotta stop having women main event. And then, sure enough, UFC Vegas in 94, you get another women's main event. Amanda Lemos, Virna Jandiroba. How about the prelims? All decisions. Holy cow, so boring. Hydra Meal would then knock out the young tiger, Lee Jong-yang, in 1 minute and 5 seconds. Doo-Ho Choi would get back in the win column with a knockout of Bill Algil. Loved that. Bruno Silva knockout Cody Durden. Now that was nasty. Now that was fun. Kurt Holbo beating Kanan Krueski. Expected. Steve Gerson knocking out Sungwoo Choi in 1 minute 36. That was actually pretty entertaining. And then Virna Jandiroba submitting Amanda Lemos in round 2 was just that. Just boring. Just another average Apex event. You did have some cool knockouts, though. Couple of cool knockouts. Nothing too memorable, though. Following that, UFC 304, of course, in Manchester, England, with one of the worst bout orders I think I've ever seen. Like, who decided Bilal and Leon Edwards should be the main event? Should have been Tom Aspinall, Curtis Blades. Don't know why, but they went the way they did. Kicking off the night, I mean, the only notable thing on the prelims, Mick Parkin knocking out Lucas Brzeziak. That was the only notable thing. Other than that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 decisions and 2 mediocre arm triangles submissions. That's all we had. Main card, Arnold Allen, Giga Chikadze, just looked like 2 injured guys fighting, which is kind of what it was. Gregory Rodriguez then just couldn't finish Christian Leroy Duncan. Just couldn't get him out of there. That was pretty unfortunate. Paddy Pimblett submitting King Green. Bobby Green called King Green. I'm not calling him King Green. Still calling him Bobby Green. Paddy Pimblett submitting him. Probably the second most hype moment of the night that had me out of my seat. And then Tom Aspinall knocking out Curtis Blades in 1 minute was just the chef's kiss. Utterly beautiful. Main event, Leon Edwards, Bilal Muhammad. I've never witnessed a more boring fight in my main event ever. I think this might be the worst pay-per-view main event I think I've witnessed live. It was that bad. It was that bad. It was so bad, I was like, I have to turn this off. This is just awful. And Bilal dominated him all 5 rounds. I don't know who got a 48-47 scorecard. I don't know who gave Leon Edwards a round, but they were completely wrong. Bilal won every round, and every round was boring. And I will stand by this. That Aspinall and Paddy Pimblett carried this card. We'll even throw Mick Parkin in there. We can't. Mick Parkin's an up-and-coming heavyweight, okay? We'll give him some credit. Following that disaster, August got kicked off with a little Abu Dhabi action between Corey Sandhagen and Umar Nurmagomedov. We're live in Abu Dhabi, and a couple of decisions to open the night. You actually had 5 decisions to open the night. Then finally, Cal Fernandez got a TKO of Mohamed Yaha in shocking upset fashion. Azamat Murzakanov knocking out Alonzo Manfield. I swear, Azamat Murzakanov has the nastiest knockouts out of nowhere in round 2 and 3. That dude's got some power in his fists. Joel Alvarez beating Elvis Brenner, keeping the finish streak alive with 1 minute and 24 seconds left. Loved that. Mackenzie Dern decision, good for her. Michael Chiesa submitting Tony Ferguson. I predicted it, but still sad to see Tony losing. Figueiredo being the first man to knock down Marlon Vera. Super entertaining. Shara Magomedov and Michael Okajason giving us a fight of the night. And then Umar Nurmagomedov grappling Corey Sandhagen to death for 5 straight rounds. Wasn't too bad, but I bet we're going to get better Abu Dhabi main events in the coming year. After that, a very perplexing UFC Apex event. It was almost like just such a disaster. Just like every fight just felt like underwhelming, but it was like every pick I landed was seemingly going my way. Getting us going, decision, then Joseph Zalal getting another rear naked chokehold submission on the year. Dude's an absolute dog. Boring decisions. Finally, you get Sergey Spivak and Marcin Tybura in the main event, and 1 minute 44 seconds in, Spivak finds himself in top mount and gets an armbar on Marcin Tybura. I was heavyweight armbars, got to be the rarest thing, and Spivak pulled one up. The most entertaining thing on that UFC Vegas, I want to say 95 card. It was pretty lackluster. Entertaining, though, as we headed to Perth, Australia for UFC 305 Duplessis versus Adesanya. Prelims get going. We get a submission in round 1. Love to see that. Couple decisions, then Jack Jenkins beats Herbert Burns, and this was finally when they cut Herbert Burns. Nothing too else entertaining. Main card gets going. Carlos Prates knocks out the Leech. You know what? We picked Carlos Prates in every one of his fights this year, but it's still unfortunate to see Ling Jingliang get knocked out. Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Tai Tuivasa almost gave us the biggest robbery of the year, which I would have created a whole award for, as for some reason, Tai Tuivasa was given a 29-28 scorecard. And actually was given a 30-27 scorecard in a fight where he lost everything. There was even a 29-28 against him. It just made no sense. It was a 30-27 performance for Jairzinho Rozenstruik. A terrible fight overall. No idea either of those guys still in the UFC. After that, what's up there for Fight of the Year? What is up there for me for Fight of the Year? I do think there's another fight better than that, but Dan Hooker, Mateusz Gamrot. Oh my gosh. Talk about two guys that wanted the win so badly and would go to any lengths they could to get it done. These two are some absolute dogs. Following that, amazing fight. Kai Kara-France knocks out Steve Erceg in round 1. Beautiful. And then the main event. I remembered we were at my favorite bar, Rounders. I remember we're sitting in the booth. Everyone's watching this fight. Everyone's cheering for Adesanya, and I'm going, guys, Duplessis is going to beat him. Round 4 comes around. Izzy's telling him to bring it on. Duplessis clips him. Duplessis gets the takedown. Duplessis takes his back, gets a face crank, and yeah, Dricus Duplessis retains his belt. I called it. I knew it. And yeah, Duplessis, still your middleweight champion. August wrapped up. Kyle Barala versus Jared Cannonier, one of my favorite fight night main events of the year. Fight night main events, yes, of the year. Just insane. Just utterly insane, Rest of the card, mediocre. Michael Morales defeating Neil Magny, probably the only other notable knockout. You also had both tough fighters being crowned, but Kyle Barala, Jared Cannonier, the fact this fight went the distance to me was just mind-blowing. Mind-blowing, because I don't know how Jared Cannonier ate all these punches from Kyle Barala. Kyle Barala was just such a maniac going in there. truly, and I thought he was knocked cold. There's one moment Jared Cannonier literally got slumped, and I'm pretty sure the follow-up punch Barallo landed woke him back up. This was phenomenal. One fight of the night, and as unfortunate as a year Cannonier had, Barallo being the biggest riser in the middleweight division was a pleasure to see. UFC Vegas 97, you got another change of the guard as Sean Brady beats Gilbert Burns by unanimous decision, 50-45 across the board. Other than that, Steve Garcia keeping his TKO streak alive. That was pretty interesting. Cody Durden getting a ninja choke on Matt Schnell, retiring him actually. Somewhat entertaining. Other than that, nothing too much on this card. All these Apex cards, nothing really happens. Then, in my opinion, biggest letdown of the year, probably the Sphere. The Sphere was an absolute doozy, absolute dud. Early prelims, Raul Rosas Jr. just can't beat O'Gorquin. Just can't beat him. Tries his best, but can't. Then Joshua Van Eggers-Rez, somewhat entertaining fight, but no finish. Then Ketlin Souza gets our first finish of the night. Rear naked chokehold of Yasmin Jiraguay, the Mexican fighter. Then Ignacio Bermudez shockingly knocks out Manuel Torres in the other and final finish and fight night bonus of the night. Our performance bonus. Norma Dumont then absolutely humbles Irene Aldana. We get into the main card. Finally, a Mexican fighter wins in Ronaldo Rodriguez, beating Ode Osborne by decision. Then, what I think maybe fight of the year, Esteban Ribovics versus Daniel Zluber. It's just, I know they're not big names, but if you go watch this fight, you will see two guys who I don't know how either didn't get knocked out. I don't know how either man was still standing. They were both bleeding. They were both bloody. They both were swinging to the final bell, giving everything they had. It was truly insurmountable. And you ever heard of the thing, the indomitable human spirit? I show people this fight when I'm talking about this. Just an amazing fight. Diego Lopez, Brian Ortega. The only dud about this fight is that Brian Ortega survived round one, because there's just no reason he should have survived this fight against Diego Lopez in general. But round one, he almost got knocked out in 30 seconds and just somehow survived. Valentina Shevchenko, Alexa Grasso, and Merab Dvalishvili versus Sean O'Malley, both two of the most boring fights I've watched. Kind of some letdowns. We head to Paris, France, for our next card, and not too bad. Not too bad. Couple of fun fights here and there. Main card gets going, and you have a crazy stretch. Crazy stretch here. Ferziam knocking out Matt Frevola with a knee in round 3 was just unreal. Literally knocking out Matt Frevola cold. Matt Frevola was unconscious, all right? Morgan Cherie knocking out Gabriel Miranda. Just beautiful. When you need a good knockout, send Gabriel Miranda to France. He'll get knocked out in beautiful fashion. Brian Battle flipping off the crowd after knocking out the hometown man and Kevin Doucette will never get old. William Gomez winning a decision over Anderson Brito. I mean, talk about a robbery. That might be my robbery of the year, personally. Nasruddin Imavov and Brendan Allen in the co-main event. Kind of entertaining. Back and forth battle. Nasruddin getting it done. And then Renato Moicano, Benoit Saint-Denis. It was unfortunate. Just Moicano took Benoit down both rounds. Bloodied him. Brutaled him. Such bad cuts. And they stopped after round 2. So kind of lackluster, but hey, good win for Renato. But I mean, come on. That Ferziam knockout over Matt Frevola, just dirty. UFC 307 was next up, and we watched it. I'm trying to think. I think we just watched it at my neighbor's house. I think that's just where we were watching it. But you had some fun fights on here. Court McGee getting a submission at 40 years old. Carlos Barza retiring. Ryan Spann getting back in the finish column with a finish of Ovince St. Preux. You had Joaquin Buckley knocking out Wonderboy Thompson. That was crazy. Kayla Harrison getting a win in a less than dominant fashion, but nonetheless a win. The rioting, the absolute uproar after Mario Batista beat Jose Aldo, which I was secretly happy about. People were so pissed about that. Then your co-main event, Julia Pena, Jaco Penton, just barely more entertaining than Jaco Penton versus Maribel Silva in January. Nonetheless, I'm glad Julia Pena won, but nothing really entertaining. And then the main event. This main event, I remember we were at the bar watching it, actually. It's coming back to me. I think at Lazaz Pizza, our local pizza place downtown. And I'm watching this, and I'm like, is no one else seeing this? And I'm looking around, is no one else seeing what I'm freaking seeing? Is Alex Pereira about to get knocked out? And then round 4 turns on, and Alex Pereira enters the flow state, and he's ducking every shot that Khalil's throwing at him, and Khalil goes to throw, and he counters, and he hits Khalil, and he's rocking Khalil, and Khalil's up against the cage, and he's laying into him, he hits him to the body, and down he goes, and Alex Pereira gets his third title defense, his third knockout of the year, and locked up fighter of the year. Incredible effort from Alex Pereira. I mean, fight of the night easily. One of the better fights of the year. If this won fight of the year, I wouldn't even be too mad. That was super entertaining. Following that, another UFC Vegas event. This time we had Brandon Royval versus Tetsuya Taira. And I was a big Tetsuya guy. Big fan of Tetsuya Taira. Honestly, I love him. And, oh, man, he lost to Brandon Royval. It was a close split decision. Could have gone either man's way, but I think they got it right. Definitely got it right, man. Unfortunate to see, but that's all you had there. I mean, you also had Ramazan Temuriyov making his debut, getting a nasty knockout of CJ Vergara in round 1. You had Clayton Carpenter getting a submission of over Lucas Roca in round 2. Other than that, nothing too much. This was a night for flyweights, oddly. We then got to what I think is the second best event of the year. It's got to be. UFC 300 was just so good. It's impossible to top, but UFC 308. I mean, holy cow. We kicked things off. Renat Fakhretdinov versus Carlos Seal. Competitive. Ismail Nurmagomedov, Bruno Silva. Competitive. Farhad Victor Hugo. Competitive. Kenny Nchukwu debuting at heavyweight. Knocking out Chris Barnett. Love that. Abu Magomedov submitting Bruno Ferreira. Super entertaining. And then the streak began. We had Jeff Neal. We had Matus Rebecca versus Mike Tibek-Orolbai. Here we go. This was the Mike Tibek-Orolbai fight I was thinking about. Split decision. I thought Mike Tibek-Orolbai was going to die. Okay, he was bleed out. This looked like a battle on a war field in frickin' Serbia back in the 1800s. This was an absolute war. Okay, Mike Tibek's eyes completely swollen up. Rebecca's dripping blood. These were just swinging at each other. Every time you thought Orolbai was out, he would get back to his feet and keep the fight coming at Matus. I mean, it was super entertaining. No words. I was flatlined. This is in my top 5 fights of the year. Easily the top 5 fights of the year. This was a war. After that, Jeff Neal knocks out Rafael dos Anjos. Incredible. After that, Aibol Aslan knocking out Rafael Sequeira in 51 seconds. Aibol Aslan is such a savage. Main card gets going. Shar Magomedov lands the first ever double spinning back fist on Armin Petrosyan, knocking him out in round 2. Cinema. Leron Murphy finishes Dan Ige handsomely. Magomedov Ankalaev passes the test that is Alexander Rakic. Then Khamzat Chimaev runs through Robert Whittaker. They start the fight off, going at each other. Here you go. Who's going to go first? Whittaker, ready for the shoot. Khamzat shoots, lands it, takes him down, and breaks his jaw. Literally breaks his jaw. I've never seen a faster tap from Robert Whittaker before. The strength of the arms of Khamzat Chimaev, terrifying stuff from Khamzat Chimaev. And yeah, that's why he's the number 2, actually might be number 3 middleweight in the world. We then get to the main event, and this could be the most shocking moment of the year. I mean, I predicted it. I thought it would happen, which is why it wasn't that shocking to me, but Ian Topuria knocking out Max Holloway in round number 3, a minute 34 seconds into round number 3. Just insane. Back and forth through the first 2 rounds, and then landing the killer blow. I mean, the combo to set it up, too. Just dirty, just beautiful. It was phenomenal. And Ian Topuria, man, getting it done. I mean, what a dog. What a dog Ian Topuria is. I mean, truly, I tell you, he runner-up for Fighter of the Year. He is as entertaining as it gets, and he's going to be a big star in the UFC. Let me tell you that. He's already a big star. He's already a big star in this company. After the highs that was UFC 308, we headed back to the UFC Apex for UFC Vegas 99. Oh my gosh, so boring. I mean, this entire card we had 2 finishes. 2 finishes, that is right. That's all we had. One of which was Jocelyn Edwards getting a submission on the prelims with 27 seconds left. And then we had Anthony Hernandez just running through. Michelle Barrow won the first minute of the fight. After that minute, Hernandez just dominated him. This was boring. This was exhausting. You had Rob Font killing the hype train of Kyler Phillips. You had Charles Johnson completing his 4-fight victories in 2024. So there was that. Yeah, Darren Elkins and Daniel Pineda giving us a bloody entertaining fight. But other than that, just nothing. This was a brutal fight night. And I guess Alexander Hernandez improving. That's all we had. Following that, November, you get UFC Edmonton with some interesting fights. Canadians back on top. Canadians starting off the night. I think it was 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, 6-0, 7-0. Canada did pretty good. I think they went 7-2, maybe 7-3. Not too bad on this card. You had Alexander Romanov getting a win here, then being cut because of how boring his style is. Yusuf Zalal submitting Jack Shore, and he retired. That's what I remember. Amin Zahabi getting a huge win over Pedro Munoz, jumping into the rankings. Charles Jourdain getting a round 2 submission, which was entertaining. Mike Mallet back in the win category. Dustin Stolfus knocking out Marc-Andre Baliout. That was wild. Shocking knockout there. Jasmine Jasudavicius getting a Darce choke. Very entertaining. Then boring co-main event and main event. Aaron Blanchard and Rose Namajunas had no business being 5 rounds. And the fact that Amir Albazi was not ready for the level that was Brandon Moreno was just boring. So, didn't even watch those fights. I turned them off. I was so bored. But it was all worth it because UFC Vegas 100 came around and I got to witness Carlos Prates knock out Neil Magny in round number 1, and nothing beat it. Nothing beat it. Face plants Neil Magny. Oh, it was so dirty. Oh, it was such a dirty knockout. I couldn't get over it. It was so beautiful. So beautiful. Also on this card, I mean, you honestly had only 3 fights go the distance. I mean, that's a great night on my bingo card. You even had 6 round 1 finishes. UFC Vegas 100, the best UFC Vegas, and it was the 100th one. Incredible. Trayshawn Gore getting a submission. Damon Blackshear getting a submission. Charles Radke getting a nasty knockout of Matthew Semmelsberger. Alizio Zaleski dos Santos knocking out Zach Scrogan. You also had Mansour Abdul Malik beating Dusko Todorovic with a knockout. Jillian Robertson jumping into the top 10. Entertaining fight with Gaston Bolanos and Cortavius Romeos. Then the debut of Rainer Day Ritter. We had mentioned him, former 1 champion, debuting against Gerald Meerschaert. Very entertaining fight. Oddly entertaining fight. You know, Rainer almost knocked Gerald out at the end of round 1. Round 2 came back. Gerald almost beat him. Then round 3, Rainer gets the arm triangle choke, and these 2 guys looked so gassed. It was absolutely crazy. And they asked Rainer, what are you going to do? What do you want next? He's like, tell you what, you know what I want next? I want a cold beer right now and hang out with my kids. How about that? Rainer Day Ritter, man of the people. Then, of course, Carlos Prates, Neil Magny, one of my favorite endings to a main event I've seen all year. We got to the midway point of November, UFC 309, the second to last pay-per-view of the year. Phenomenal. Stipe Miocic, John Jones, an amazing main event. Amazing main event. John Jones finishing Stipe, basically, you know, all but confirming that, yeah, Tom Aspinall's probably going to be next. Did what he had to do. Stipe, bye-bye. You were my projection for the biggest drop-off of the year, and I think this was the biggest drop-off of the year. But good win for John. Love to see it. Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler giving us a fight of the night. It was very entertaining, very back and forth. It was Charles Oliveira all day long. Bo Nickel and Paul Craig, boring as could be. Viviane Araújo, Karine Silva. Watching Karine Silva's hype train die. Unfortunate to see. Mauricio Ruffy and James Lontop, competitive fight. Marcus McGee, Jonathan Martinez. Frustrating fight for Jonathan Martinez fans. Jim Miller submitting Damon Jackson. Loved that. Loved that. That was entertaining. David Onama, Roberto Romero, runner-up for Fight of the Night. I was all on about that. That was entertaining. Ramiz Brahimaj knockout Mickey Gall, and Oban Elliott knockout Basil Hafez. 2 nasty knockouts on the early prelims. UFC 309 was not too shabby. Rounding out November, we headed to Macau, China. The card was okay. You know, obviously missing the fact that we have a Chinese champion and she's out fighting. That was kind of brutal. But, hey, Zhao Long knocking out Quang Li. That was a nasty knockout. Shi Ming knocking out Feng Zhaokan. Entertaining. Cho Dong Hung knocking out Kiro Sahota. How about that? The biggest, I think it is, you know, one of the biggest upsets. I think this is the biggest upset of the year. The minus 900 favorite Wang Kong getting submitted in round 2 by Gabriela Fernandez. That was shocking. Carl Zulberg making the jump into the top 6 at light heavyweight. Zhang Mingyang knocking out Ozzy Diaz. Who doesn't love a Zhang Mingyang knockout? 18 wins, 18 finishes. Love that guy. Muslim Salikov landing a spinning wheel kick on the hometown man in Song Kinong. How about that? Then, you know, Jean Cheonan beats Tabitha Ritchie, Yippee, and Peter Yan and Davison Figueiredo give us a competitive back and forth contest. And Peter Yan winning was very happy to see. I didn't actually watch this, though, since it was going on as I was asleep in my bed. December kicked off with our 2 events and the final pay-per-view of the year with UFC 310. UFC 310, you know, Kedi and Chukwu ending the year on a bang. Round 1 knockout of Lucas Brzeziak. Chase Hooper, round 1 submission of Clay Guida. Michael Chiesa submitting Max Griffin. That was wild. Joshua Van ending the year on a bang, jumping into the top 15 at flyweight. Eric Anders finishing Chris Weidman was good to see. Brian Battle against Randy Brown, kind of a letdown. Most for Evlov, Aljamain Sterling, might be my favorite grappling contest that I've seen. This was all grappling, and yet it was so entertaining. For that day, Luque defeating Sema Garimbo with a round 1 on Deconda choke, 52 seconds in. Bittersweet. Reyes knockout Anthony Smith. Look, I hate to say it, Anthony Smith. That was good to see my boy Dominic Reyes getting another win. Doo-Hoo Choi beating Nate Landwehr, boring. Bryce Mitchell, Kron Gracie was boring up until the slam finish. God versus Volkov. Okay, I picked God to win. Okay, I picked God to win, so I was happy. But, yeah, pretty screwy decision. Shavkat, Ian Gary, competitive technical fight. Shavkat comes out on top. And then Pantoja and Kaya Sakura. It was just kind of one of those fights where you're like, dang, Pantoja's just going to win this. So that was that. Not too bad. No fight of the nights on there. Then we end the year at the Amale Arena in Tampa, Florida. 18,625 fans packing the arena and going out with a bang. Kicked off the night, 4 decisions, nothing too entertaining. Then Sean Woodson gets a knockout. Joe Alvarez gets a knockout. Michael Johnson getting my favorite knockout of the night. Navajo Sterling getting tested for the first time in his career. Daniel Marcos beating Adrian Yanez to remain undefeated. Dustin Jacoby knockout Vitor Petrino. Never mind, that I think was better than the Michael Johnson one. Manel Cape going absolutely crazy on Bruno Silva. I mean, absolutely wild. Cub Swanson, Billy Quarantillo, fight of the night. One of my favorite fights of the year. Super entertaining. And then Joaquin Buckley ending the year 4-0, jumping into the top 6 at welterweight by getting a doctor stoppage of Colby Covington right before the beginning of round number 4. So that was the year, folks. That was the year of 2024 in the UFC, and I wouldn't have it any other way. No, I would not. It was a very entertaining year. In terms of all our title fights, just go over them real quickly. Thumbs up or thumbs down. We're already going to be ranking all of these, but Pennington Bueno Silva, thumbs down. Duplessis, Sean Strickland, thumbs up. Topiro Volkanovski, thumbs up. O'Malley Vera, thumbs up. Whaley Chonen, thumbs down. Parahill, thumbs up. Pantoja Ursig, thumbs up. Mock Jeff Poirier, double thumbs up. Behra Prohaska, easy thumbs up. Aspinall Blades, thumbs up. Bilal Muhammad, Leon Edwards, double thumbs down. Driscus Duplessis, Israel Adesanya, that gets a thumbs up. Valentina Shevchenko versus Alexa Grasso and Merab Dvalishvili versus Sean O'Malley. Back-to-back fights, 5 rounds of grappling, triple, quadruple thumbs down for both of those. Julia Pena, Haakon Penton, another thumbs down, boring fight. Para and Roundtree, though, that gets a thumbs up. Topuria and Holloway, easy thumbs up. Jones and Stipe, thumbs up. And you know what? As boring as Pantoja versus Kazuchika was, I will give Pantoja a thumbs up. And you know what? I give the year of 2024 for the UFC a big thumbs up. It was a success. Very successful year. I mean, it was wild. Another wild year in the UFC. And might I add, folks, we went 319 and 194 on our predictions, plus 125. Now I got to top myself. 2025, we're coming for the takeover. I don't know if I can get 400. I think my next goal should be 350. I think we're going to try and improve by 31 correct predictions for the upcoming years. That's what we'll shoot for. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. Truly, I appreciate it. Without you guys, what would I do? What would I do without a little audience here on my podcast to talk about UFC? But as always, I will make sure to catch you all next time. And we got a lot of fun stuff. A lot of fun stuff planned. A lot of rankings, a lot of end-of-the-year recaps and stuff. We're in for a good amount of UFC for the present future. Kick some butt this weekend, guys. I'll catch ya.